Man, check this out.
For an official Rob Brown lockdown.
This is being weird.
Yeah.
Carolinas.
Lockdown.
This is the Rob Brown Show.
Good morning.
What's up, bro?
Bro.
Pal.
And away we go. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Yo, welcome in. Great to have you. Happy Thursday. Yes, it is already Thursday this week. Just flying by. It's back to football night in America. Got a little NFL football on the television tonight. No baseball this evening, but we did have some last night. The Toronto Blue Jays, now just 27 outs away from claiming their first World Series championship dating back to the early 1990s. You know, we're going to talk a little baseball on the show today.
Wow, 90s. That was a long time ago. I mean, that's like ancient history.
Been there, done that. Yeah, it's a... It is a long time ago. It's dare I say, painful long time
Like
ago.
a quarter of a century? Over a quarter.
Well over that. Painfully well over that, actually. And we, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about baseball today on the show. Because World Series is both fun and interesting. You can have things that are fun, not interesting. You can have things that are interesting, not fun. It is special when you get fun and interesting. And Trey Savage is a savage. How about a rook? How about
a guy not just playing in his first World Series, playing in his first year of professional
I
baseball?
fixed it. What are you doing?
I'm moving and setting my text line up.
Oh, okay. All right. I fixed the thing. And
Oh, no, I saw.
Immediately you went and it looked like you were fixing it.
No, I wouldn't change any changes that the great one made to the show. I want to get our text line up. 844-326-3663, by the way, is the number if you'd like to be a part of the show. You can text it or you can call it.
I apologize for my outburst that interrupted baseball.
You don't, though. Trey Savage last night. This is a cat who I think, especially if A, Toronto wins the game, and B, if Toronto wins the game in 7, and I'll tell you why here in just a moment. This cat is a dude who started off this year in the Jays organization at the lowest level of professional ball.
Is that like below single A?
That is the lowest level of baseball. I am talking about like all the way at the bottom.
Savannah Bananas opponent?
No, Savannah Bananas are
Said
not an MLB team.
I said opponent.
No, they are not that. They may at like those are the teams that like maybe at some point they might actually have like an exhibition game. But you're talking about teams that are paying their guys $30,000 a year to play a full season of baseball.
So you're saying he started from the bottom, now he's here.
AAA ball, baby. Started from the bottom, now he's here. So this cat started off in AAA ball for MLB. And then he worked his way up to AA. And then he worked his way up to high A. And then he worked his way up to A ball. And then, with just a few weeks left to go in the season, Trey Savage got called up to the Toronto Blue Jays. And they basically called him up because they needed an arm, effectively. Like, they just needed an arm. They needed somebody that could come, chew up some innings, and that was it. And then he gets there, and the dude has been all but lights out. He's had like maybe one inning that you could describe as anything less than like really good. So my guy gets the start last night. And the expectation, I think, for Trey Savage was just give us a chance, right? Like, just go out there, Rook. And he pitched game one. And in game one, he was good. He wasn't great. He was good. He was good enough for them to win. But it was kind of a give us enough to win type of performance. So they send him out back again last night. And they send him out against Blake Snell, who also went in game one. Blake Snell has been nails in this postseason so far. And what does Blake Snell do last night? Blake Snell last night goes out and gives up back-to-back dongs, opening two batters. Schneider, who was filling in for Springer, who is still out with the injury, he goes yard on the opening pitch of the game. Vladdy Daddy Guerrero Jr. comes up number 2 in the lineup, and he goes yad in his first AB of the night. It's 2-0 Dodgers before a baseball touches grass or dirt anywhere on the diamond. 2-0, and then Savage comes out. And my guy just starts racking up Ks. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. The only run allowed was a Kike Hernandez third inning blast. Outside of that, he gave up 2 other hits, no other runs, and he struck out 12 in 7 innings last night. That's the line I expected Blake Snell to have. Snell went 6.2, gave up 6 hits, 5 earned runs, walked 4, K'd 7, and again gave up those 2 blasts to open the game. I am really intrigued by the way that this Toronto Blue Jays team is playing right now. Because I thought Dodgers in 5, to be honest. I thought that series was coming to its conclusion last night, and I thought its conclusion was going to be in Los Angeles with the Dodgers hoisting their second trophy. I'm not going to say, okay, it's Toronto's ball game now. Because I got to tell you, and this is why I love the baseball postseason. I have been, I don't want to say wrong about just about everything, because I got most of the wild card and most of the divisional series predictions correct. But I've been wildly wrong about everything since the championship series. And it's not like prognostications outright. I thought the Mariners were going to get the Blue Jays. Better all-around team. Granted, 7 games. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to get some wrong. I thought that the Dodgers would be taking at least 6 games in the NLCS. Completely wrong about that. I thought Dodgers in 5 in the World Series. Love Toronto. They're explosive. But at the end of the day, it just felt like the Dodgers were waking up. Well, they were already awake in these playoffs, but we're waking up even more as we got to the World Series. And instead, the Dodgers last night were just like from the dish. In fact, not even just last night. I would make the argument in games 4 and 5. The Dodgers bats have just been question marks. They had 4 hits last night. Teoscar Hernandez had a pair of them. Kike Hernandez had the home run, and Will Smith had one. Shohei Ohtani, 0 for 4. Mookie Betts, 0 for 4. Freddie Freeman, 0 for 3. Edmund, 0 for 3. Muncy, 0 for 3. I don't know what happened here. The Dodgers, who are a team that we talked to, I've said 100 times during this postseason. What I've loved about the Dodgers is that they've been getting good enough pitching throughout really this entire World Series. They've been getting good enough pitching throughout this entire run that it did not really matter if the bats weren't electrified, because they were winning all their 3-2 games. They were winning all their 2-1 games. They were beating the Phillies with 3-2, 2-1. They were doing it to the Brewers. They've done it to everybody. And so I came into this series kind of making the assumption the same thing would hold true, that the Dodgers were just going to be able to do whatever they wanted because the pitching was so good. And it's not been bad by any stretch of the imagination, but you go back to game 1, the Blue Jays beat them up 11-4. Blake Snell in that game, 5 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, all earned, 4 strikeouts, took him 100 pitches to get out of 5 innings. Then you go to game 2, and it was kind of like, all right, they bounced back. Game 1, by the way, and this was the stat that kind of jumped off the page at me. What kind of jumped off the page at me was in game 1s where a team swept the league championship series, they're 0-7 in the last 7 in game 1s. If you sweep the championship series, you lose game 1 of the World Series. And that's kind of a spot that I looked at and I'm like, all right, well, if there was ever a team that's going to break a mold here, it's got to be this Dodgers team. They didn't. They didn't. And again, it's the rest versus rust. You know, in football, just about everybody wants the bye, right? Even though it is proven that the bye can screw you up a little bit, you still want the bye. You want the rest. You want the recuperation time. In baseball, it kind of looks like the bye may not be the best thing in the world for you. And this year, as far as the wild card round has gone with the MLB playoff bracket, because the teams that were on the bye, the Dodgers in the National League, the Blue Jays in the American League, have both made it to the World Series. But it does appear that rest can screw up a baseball team. So the Dodgers go out, they get blown out in game number 1. They get it back in game 2, 5-1. Yamamoto, 9 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks. That's the pitching that carried them here. Then they come out and they get game 3, 6-5. And that was the 18-inning friggin' marathon. Why were they in that spot? Well, first off, because they went with Max Scherzer off the bump, who got ripped, and then the bats picked him up. It took him a long time to get there, but the bats picked him up. Then you go into game 4, 6-2 Jays, kind of the same story. Like, why did it take so long for them to get there? Ohtani looked immortal. Not only could he not hit in that game, but he got touched up pretty good. 6 hits in 6 innings, 4 runs all earned, K'd 6, but pitching. And then last night, same thing. In a spot where Blake Snell, with the exception of game 1, but again, I'm willing to overlook the performance of game 1 because you were battling a historic trend in that game and you lost to it. It happens. That's why it's a trend. Last night, Blake Snell had an opportunity to go out there and be the Blake Snell that he has been in this postseason and pick the Dodgers up, give them a win, create a world where, yeah, we're on the road for the next 2, but we've only got to get 1 of them. If you lose that game, you got to go on the road to Toronto, which is an absolutely raucous crowd. They haven't had a World Series championship dating back to 1993. That place is going to be absolutely buzzing. And I know that you don't want to hear it, but the political climate, Toronto is absolutely wanting to bring America's pastimes trophy back to their country. That's where we are. So now you got to go, if you're the Dodgers, you have to go to Toronto and you've got to win 2 out of 2. And more importantly, / worse, Toronto's just got to go back to the crib and win 1 out of 2. And the guys that they are likely going with in the next 2 have both been good. Both lost, but have both been good. But I'll tell you what I find even more interesting, to take it back to Trey Savage. Trey Savage in that game last night threw 104 pitches. I was texting back and forth with a couple of buddies watching this game. And I said at 104 pitches, on a night where his splitter last night was just filthy, dude. Like, last night was the most accurate usage of the phrase falls off the table that I've ever heard of or I've ever seen. Dude was throwing a splitter that would get to the plane and then just dunk. Like, it was unbelievable. It was nasty. My dude was defying the laws of physics with the splitter last night. So Trey Savage goes back into the bullpen now. And while I know it would be a big stretch, off of 104 pitches, if the Dodgers, who have to win 2 out of 2, find themselves in a tight game in game 7, Trey Savage might be available to come out and maybe like close out the ninth, right? Like it's game 7. It's the final baseball game of the year. You can throw any and everything out there to get a win if game 7 becomes necessary. He won't be available tomorrow in a game 6. But if it does go to 7, if the Dodgers do steal game 6, Savage can come out of the pen and maybe close out game 9. And if that happens, we're talking a real interesting set of circumstances there. So I am really interested to see what the pitching setup looks like in game 7 for Toronto with the guys that they have been able to save. Now, again, the Dodgers are in a pretty good spot themselves. The Dodgers are in a pretty good spot right now because Yamamoto did go that full 9. Because even though he wasn't throwing great stuff last night, you did get Blake Snell through 6.1. Like you put him in, you got some length out of these guys, which means that you did not have to lean on your high leverage arms out of the pen all that much, which means that you've probably got a little bit of depth ready for you in game 6 and 7 as well. I will tell you this. I do not envy the 2 managers of these 2 baseball teams in game 6 and 7. Because, and it always is a chess match for the managers when you get to the final 2 games of any World Series. It is a chess match, obviously, because you're not worried about longevity at this point. I'm not worried about, I need to make sure I got this guy's arm saved up because we've got another series or 2 more games in this series. You don't have to worry about that. In these last 2 games, if you're the Dodgers, you're throwing everything out in game 6. And if you're the Jays, you have to ask the question, if it is a tight game in game 6, if it is a 1-run game in game 6, and if it does become obvious that the Dodgers in 6, 7, 8 innings, the Dodgers are going to start throwing their heavy artillery at you. Do you counter with your own and take the risk that you lose that game and now you have juiced some of your leverage arms for game 7? And so if the Dodgers, but now you can't take advantage of that fact. Or if the Dodgers are down 1, up 1, tied ball game in the 6th, 7th, and they start throwing out their heavy hitters, right? Like they decide we're up 1. Let's just go ahead. We're going to take our game 7 starter and put him out there now. Let's finish this game. Do you wait? Do you hold back? Do you not throw your high leverage guys out there? You say, we're going to save this up because what we're going to do is we might lose this game. We might lose this game, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We are going to go into game 7 with all of our bullets chambered, and they're going to go into game 7 with none of theirs available. I don't know, man. Like, I don't envy these 2 managers over the next 2 games, but I do envy all of us who get to watch baseball because, yeah, this is going to be great. It's going to be great. This series is so much better than I thought it was going to be. I really thought it was going to be a steamroll job by the LA Dodgers. I really did, and yet, here we are. All right, we got a lot to get to on the radio program. We are going to talk quite a bit more about the World Series. It is a travel day today, but we do have game 6 tomorrow, game 7, if necessary, Saturday in Toronto, Canada. We'll take a look at that. What happened last night? What will happen the next 2 nights? We got to get some football in here. I do want to ask the question later on in the show. We have said for years sports are supposed to be our escape from real life. I have said many times that while I am not adverse to talking politics in sports, we do try to keep them separate as much as we can. However, what do we do when politics does not inject itself in sports, but when politics kicks down the damn door of sports and says, I'm running you now? Will we have the same keep your politics out of my sports mentality, energy, or is there a spot where maybe you're willing to say, maybe this is good when a political leader individually gets involved? Because there's a situation brewing down in Baton Rouge that I'm real interested in. And we'll start setting up the football weekend. All of that and more rolling on. I'm Rob. He's Lonzo. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate.
That world.
All right, good morning, Joe, Tiger Truther. Welcome in, Brian. Everybody, good to have you. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
episode too?
The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, the Great Malonzo, and AL. 844-326-3663 is the number to be a part of the radio program this morning. You can text it. We'll read them on the air. You can call it, and we will put you on the air. You're welcome in advance. Talked a little baseball back in segment number 1. We are going to circle back around to the baseballing a little bit later on in the show as World Series games 6 and 7 on the docket for Friday and Saturday night in Toronto, Canada. I love it. I love it. This has been last year. I think we had one of the best postseasons in recent baseball history. And while I don't think that this year's is necessarily overall top to bottom as compelling, I do think this World Series is pretty close. Pretty close. And I think it's absolutely got the possibility of going 7. I think it's absolutely going to be determined by the two managers. This is an absolute chess match that is going to take place in games 6 and 7. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out. So we'll get back to that a little bit later on in the radio broadcast, but there's plenty of football that we've got to get to. The Atlanta Falcons. I know obviously we cover both. We cover primarily the Carolina Panthers on this station, but I do know there's a lot of Falcon fans out there as we're about the same distance from there. The Falcons are 3-4. The Falcons are a team that a lot of people, not me, not Lonzo, but a lot of people suspected would be capable of winning the NFC South this year. The belief was that Atlanta, assuming that Michael Penix Jr. wasn't just bad at football, that Atlanta had put together finally enough talent, had assembled enough talent that they would be able to compete. And I think some of that had to do with the fact that Tampa Bay lost their offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, now the head coach of Jacksonville. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was belief that enough had changed. And because Atlanta officially hired Raheem Morris and have showed, full faith and trust in him, that would be enough to get him over the hump. But it just hasn't. Atlanta now 3-4. Atlanta is now 3-4. They are third place in that division. They have lost back-to-back games, including to a very dinged up San Francisco 49ers team. And then this past weekend, Lonzo, is Atlanta losing at home to Miami the most embarrassing loss of the season for anyone so far?
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
There may be some more down the road, though.
There might be. But so far this season, I think losing to Miami on your own turf, with Miami floundering.
Not only losing, but making Miami look
decent. Yeah. Miami actually looked like a competent football team. And hey, maybe Miami finds their way back. Maybe we're looking at the end of the year and we're like, damn, how did this team do what this team just did? But I doubt it. So we do have to point out, of course, that last week against the Miami Dolphins, starting quarterback Michael Penix Jr., starting wide receiver, and guy who decided to announce his arrival in the National Football League this year, Drake London, were both out. Michael Penix Jr. had a bone bruise on the right knee. Drake London had a leg issue as well. Yesterday, Raheem Morris stepped up and said that they believe that Michael Penix Jr. will be back and available for this team coming up this weekend when they take on the New England Patriots on the road. They went with Kirk Cousins last week. It did not go well. This team ended up with 213 total yards of offense in that game. Penix Jr. was a limited practice participant yesterday. Raheem Morris said after practice that it is a cautionary approach and that they do believe that he will be able to go. Michael Penix Jr. so far this season, 61% completion percentage, 1,400 yards of passing, 5 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, a QB rating right now
of 85.2 altogether in the regular season. He is on target right now, assuming he plays every game. He is on target right now to average to get to 3,422, 3,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, if his numbers stay consistent. Now, there's the interesting thing here that so far they have played a pretty good lineup of teams. Buccaneers out of the gate, Vikings on the road at Carolina versus the Commanders. The Commanders did have Jaden Daniels in that game. The Bills, the Niners, and the Dolphins. Now they've got, listen to this lineup. They've got to go to New England. They come back, then they go to Europe, and they will play the Indianapolis Colts. Then they're back home to take on the Panthers. They're at New Orleans, at the Jets, Seahawks, Bucks, at the Cardinals, back home for the Rams, and they will end it with New Orleans the first week of the new year. I don't know what to make out of this football team. Because on one hand, you have a guy out of the backfield in Bijan Robinson that I genuinely believe might be the best running back in football. Now, the numbers don't show up for that, but I'm wondering if I need to blame that on Atlanta. And here's why. Last week against the Miami Dolphins, Bijan Robinson got 9 carries, and he got 3 targets out of the backfield. And you can give me the thought that, all right, Rob, Miami was up 7-0 after the first quarter. They were up 17-3 at the half. Like, where would you like him to get more touches? And the answer is anywhere I can give him to him. Anywhere I can give him to him. Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, has done enough on tape. And I told you I had a change in philosophy of how I talk about football on the radio program starting this year. And that change in philosophy is I care about what is on tape. And, you know, my gut feelings factor into it. The intangibles factor into it. I think that, you know, the answers in the locker room, it all factors into it. But at the end of the day, the thing that I am going to base my projections and prognostications are, what's on tape? What are you showing me? Bijan Robinson, as a football player, has shown me, I think he can be Jonathan Taylor. I think he can be Saquon Barkley. Like, I think he could be a 2K rushing guy every year. I think he's that good. And more importantly than that, as good as those two guys are out of the backfield, Bijan Robinson is a better pass catcher and yak daddy than either one of those two running backs that I just mentioned. I don't know what to do with this football team because we will all have fun when there's a narrative about a team that we like to run with, right? Like, we'll all have fun when there's a narrative about a team. And the narrative about Atlanta is they just can't win. But at some point, I have to ask the question, why? And it is frustrating because with a lot of teams, it just seems real easy. With Dallas, it's Jerry Jones. That's not a question mark for me. With Cincinnati, it's because they refuse to give Joe Burrow an offensive line that's worth a damn. There's for a lot of teams that just aren't good, it is easy to say why. With my New Orleans Saints, this team isn't good because our general manager is holding us hostage, and the general manager has been the corrupt, and I won't use some of the other adjectives I want to because I might bump up against libel/slander rules, but has been a lackey for our owner for years to the point that she's not going to fire the guy because if he writes the book, she might go to jail.
You know, Rob, after one thing gets fixed in Louisiana, maybe sights will be turned towards that.
We're going to talk about that coming up in a little while. Old Jeff Landry, he said, we're going to go out and fire. We're going to find us a good coach. I promise you, we're going to find you a good coach for the LSU Tigers. So we're going to get to that for sure. But our GM is the problem in New Orleans, Louisiana. And that's just a fact, right? So with all of that being said, what is the problem with the Atlanta Falcons? They don't it's not that they draft poorly, I don't think. The guys that they drafted, specifically the edge rushers, Jalen Walker and James Pierce, they've been good. They've been good. I mean, I guess you can question some guys that are later on in the draft, but I would also point out there are very few teams that string together long runs of, 6th and 7th round guys that make an immediate impact. So what the hell is the problem with this football team? Right now, I kind of want to dump it at the feet of Raheem Morris, which is, again, a hiring I didn't understand when it happened. I'm like, all right, let me get this right. You're going to hire the guy that the last time you fired a coach, you made the interim head coach who stepped in and the team did not respond to it. But you're going to bring that guy back and you're going to give him the headset again. And the answer is yes. And I like Raheem Morris as a dude, but I'm not there with him as a head coach. And I pointed out after the loss to Miami, the post-game locker room interview that he did with one of the reporters from Atlanta, where he did a speed run of every coaching cliche in a 1 minute and 15-second clip. He hit every one of them. Well, they were more physical. They wanted us more today. Got to go out there and make good decisions. Got to go out there and execute. We didn't do this. We didn't it was just a speed run of every coaching cliche you've ever heard. And when I started reading up on practice reports for Atlanta yesterday, when I found out Michael Penix Jr. is coming back, and I'm like, okay, can this guy get them back on path? They are 500. They are, with a bye week already in the hand, just a half game back of Carolina. They're a full 3 games back of Tampa, but again, they've already had their bye. They can get that one back. Can they come back to this? And I'm like, I don't know if they can under Raheem Morris, even with Michael Penix and Drake London coming back. Atlanta fans, I'd like to ask you, is this on Raheem Morris or am I missing something? I like to think I know ball and I can see it. I don't see it. What's wrong with this football team? Falcons fans, love for you to check in. 844-326-3663. We're back after this on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, good morning right there. Tiger Truther said, our boy Kevin from downstairs, Kevin from the Moving the Chains pod, went to a restaurant yesterday, and he got the little placard they give you with the number you put on your table so the waiter bring your food. His was 67, and he just put a picture of it on his Instagram profile. And I was like, Kevin, no, Kevin. You're too old for that, Kevin. Too old for that. Stay right there, guys. We'll be right back. The Rob Brown Show on your radio. It is the fan upstate, Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. We'd love to have you on the radio program this AM. I want to play a clip for you, and we are probably going to come back to this again later on in the show. And it's for a few reasons. We have said for a very long time that we do our best. It is impossible not to inject politics in sports. They're intertwined. We try to keep the Venn diagram of sports and politics. We try to keep that middle section where they overlap as thin as we can. Because in the world we live in now, politics are just infectious. They're in everything that we do. There is nowhere you can go anymore and completely escape the world of politics, and that includes sports. But we do try to, at least for our 4 hours on the air every morning, try to give you the break that we're all, I think, desperately in need of as best as we are capable of doing. But sometimes it is not that politics is injected into sports, because sometimes politics is injected into sports. Sometimes politics comes and it just absolutely kicks the door down of sports and says, don't really care if you want me here or not. I got the power. Bum, 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 bum. That's what happened yesterday in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, I told you earlier this week that I think the LSU job, I genuinely think it is the best job for a head coach in the country. I think it is going to pay as much as anybody else is in the country. I think that you have access to more resources than you probably do at most, if not every other school in the country. And the big reason that I've said I think LSU is the best job in the country is because in LSU, or in Louisiana, there is no competition for LSU. Kids who grow up going to high school and playing football in Louisiana, they all want to be a Tiger. They all want to be a Bayou Bengal. If you play your high school football in Alabama, you've got Auburn fans, you've got Alabama fans, and a trickle of Georgia fans. If you play your ball in Georgia, it's mostly Georgia, but there's some Georgia Tech kids in there. And of course, you're surrounded by Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, et cetera, et cetera. There's competition. South Carolina, you got two schools right here in the state that fight over guys. Forget the inroads that have been laid into this state by teams like Alabama, teams like Georgia. In Louisiana, there is none of that. I was thinking yesterday, like, what other schools have that? And Zoe will be able to speak on this better than me, but like, my thought was, does Ohio State have that in the state of Ohio? And I thought maybe, yeah. But I also know that there are some Michiganders in Ohio, just like there are some Ohioans in Michigander.
Up near Toledo, because Toledo is partially in Ohio and partially in Michigan.
Yeah, so I don't even think Ohio State has the monopoly on Ohio. I'm not saying it's probably got more than most states.
What do you consider a monopoly? I mean, how much do you, so it has to be 100%?
I mean, I don't think there's a way to objectively define it like X amount of percent of football. What I know is if you go down to Louisiana and you start going to all the high schools around Southeast Louisiana, you don't find a registering population of fans of other schools, because, and there's for two reasons. Number one, partially because not a lot of people like move to Louisiana as people who are having and raising kids, right? Like, if you're going to Louisiana, you're moving to New Orleans.
It's not like here and some other state and Florida,
right,
where it's a destination to move to.
Right. And for a state like Florida, where it is a population of residents who are having their kids and all that, there's 5 schools down in that state. So it's just a naturally split demographic. Louisiana's not like that. It's just LSU. There's no Bama fans. There's no Auburn fans. There's no Georgia fans, Tennessee fans, Florida fans. It's all LSU kids, which should make the job easy.
There are a ton of colleges in Ohio, but the Ohio State University is the one.
I would agree with that, but I would also say you probably got a lot of people who have moved to cities like Cleveland, cities like Columbus, who maybe bring their fandom from other places, and you got registering fan bases from elsewhere. It's not that way in Louisiana. So, blah, 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 blah. It's the best job in college football, in my opinion, which means that they should get pick of the litter, and which means that they should get it right more often than they don't. But Brian Kelly was not it. And I told you yesterday, I think the reason for that is that Brian Kelly's just a fraudulent person. He's not a nice guy. He's not likable. He's very self-centered. He's just not a good dude. And I have a theory I'm going to float for you later in the show, which is you can't be an a-hole and be a successful college coach anymore. You can be gruff, but you can't be an outright a-hole. And I'll explain my thoughts on that a little bit later in the show. But yesterday, the governor of Louisiana, and I want you to think about this, in the history of college football, as long as you can remember and think back, have you ever heard of a situation where the governor of the state hosted the board of directors from the school at the governor's mansion to make a decision about the football coach, and then after the football coach was fired, with the injection of opinion from the governor of the state then came out and said this: of course you're not going to play. Now let me try that one more time, because it's the entire segment right now.
Consistent. At least there's that.
Hey, Jeff Landry, go today.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. You know, I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful. And we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly. And we're going to put metrics on it, because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country and then leaving the taxpayers on the foot, to foot the bill. So, yeah, I absolutely. Who's that? No. I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach. Because, wait, I want to hold on. One real quick thing on that. Because here's what y'all reported me to do. Y'all need to start looking at who represents all these people, like these agents. You know what's interesting? If I'm not mistaken, Woodward's agent, Kelly's agent, the Texas A&M, they're all the same agent. Like, you realize if I would be, I don't know how many sports writers we got here today? Just you. We should have a bunch. Okay? Like, this is ridiculous. Lawyers would be disbarred for the way these agents act and the way they're able to represent. In fact, there's no doubt, they may even represent some of the players now. Like, it's really time for the NCAA to put on some guardrails in college sports. Because, and it is fine. We don't need the guardrails. If big billionaires want to spend all that kind of money, no problem. But if I got to go find $53 million from Kevin, it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. I'm just telling you. I know. And I think that that's important as well. Y'all should start looking into that.
So that is Jeff Landry. He is the governor of the state of Louisiana.
Love the accent. That's
old Cajun accent. Right, I got members of my family that talk like that.
Yeah, it's just I thought, I was listening to Harry Connick Jr.
We're going to find a good football coach.
Yeah.
Come down to LSU and coach the Tigers. We're going to find us a good football coach. I got guys in my family that talk like that. All right. So Jeff Landry says, look, Scott Woodward, who is the athletic director at LSU, he says, I promise you he will not be selecting the next head coach. Now, you also heard the reason why, which is Scott Woodward was the guy who hired Jimbo Fisher to Texas A&M. I do want to point out, because this gets left out of this conversation. I'm not saying it makes it any better or worse, but it gets left out. Scott Woodward was not the guy who gave Jimbo Fisher the extension to his contract that added the $76 million buyout that he got. He was not. He signed him initially to like a 10-year total $76 million deal, which had like a 40-something or young 50-something million dollar buyout. But then Ross Bjork, who is now Lonzo's athletic director at Ohio State, Ross Bjork was the one who signed Jimbo Fisher to the extension that gave him the highest buyout of all time.
Doing a wonderful job, by the way.
It's not bad. It's not bad. And then I would also point out that Scott Woodward is the guy who hired Kim Mulkey to coach the LSU women's basketball team. That's worked out pretty good. And he is also the guy who hired the LSU baseball coach. That's worked out pretty good. So it's kind of interesting to me that in this spot, the governor of the state of Louisiana straight up said, no, the AD is not going to do the AD's job. He's not, I promise you, the AD is not going to do the AD's job. We don't trust them to hire the next football coach. First off, if you're Scott Woodward and you hear that, aren't you like, all right, cool, I guess I'll start looking for a new gig. Like, that's rough.
Or you just sit back, keep your job, hopefully, and let the governor or the committee or whoever it is pick the coach and hope they don't do well.
The coach.
So you
the
can
coach
go,
of the
see,
Tigers.
I know what I'm talking about.
I mean,
they don't.
I don't know.
Worst case scenario, they pick somebody who comes in there and wins a national championship.
So I do have a couple of thoughts about this. The first one is,
can you say Urban Meyer with that accent?
I gotta think about it. It takes me a minute. If I all right, so in 2 weeks, the weekend before Thanksgiving, the wife and I are going down to New Orleans for a little like long weekend getaway. We're going to take off the Friday, or it's like the Friday before. Anyway, we're going down to New Orleans for like 3 days. And when I come back on Tuesday, I need you to know it'll take me a day or two where I just sound like an idiot. It'll take me a day or two. I've told this before, and this is not a joke. I've been asked before why it is that I say certain words certain ways. Like, why do you say, schedule? Like, why do you say words with certain inflections? There's an actual good reason for that. And the answer is, when I was first getting into radio, when I was at alarm, when I was not radio guy Rob, when I was a baby radioer out there, I had just a trace.
When you were on ham radio or CB radio?
Yeah, back in the day. It was a Tuesday. When I was young and I was getting into the game, there were traces of that accent still left from my family. And the way I trained it out of me was to pick certain words to say. Destination. I would say words in funny ways so that when I got to them, it would reset the way that I talked. The problem is it created a habit that is still around 17 years later. Whatever. That's the point. So the governor of the state of Louisiana held a press conference yesterday in which he said, and I don't know if this had been said to Scott Woodward, the AD at LSU, but the AD at LSU is not going to do the job of picking the next football coach for the Tigers. It's not his job anymore. Now, what I do find interesting is Landry did not say who is going to pick it. He didn't say we're forming a crack team. We have top men on the job. He didn't say who it's going to be.
He did joke that he was going to ask President
Trump
to do it.
And listen, he's a big MAGA guy. He's a big Trump guy. I get it. You want to a little bit. That's politics. I understand it. I think
your head would literally explode if Trump picked the next coach for LSU.
I wouldn't love it.
What if they want? Well, I mean, you're not an LSU fan, but if you were, I mean,
I still wouldn't love it.
What if they won?
No, listen. There is. I've told him before. I got no secret. I got love in my heart for LSU. I do. I got love in my heart for LSU. That's where all my family went. Had I not lived in Florida and had out-of-state tuition not been what I had to pay to go to LSU, I would 1,000% have gone to LSU. If we still lived in Louisiana, I'd have been a Tiger. But we didn't, so I'm a UWF Go Argonauts Argonaut. I want to talk more about this because I know we're up against it. But I found a couple of things interesting about what Jeff Landry had to say. First and foremost, I love that the governor of Louisiana stepped in and said, hey, listen, my AD, the AD at this school, he's not going to do the AD thing. That's going to be somebody else's job, not mine. But he didn't say whose job it is going to be, and I'd be very curious about that. The second thing is he said, I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country and leaving the taxpayers on the hook, which is all well and good, except for the overwhelming majority of dollars that get paid to a head coach do not come from taxes, even for public schools. Yeah, they don't come from taxes.
Some does. And if any does, that's still out of your and my pocket.
As a former resident of and a long-term lover of the state of Louisiana, Jeff, you got bigger problems if you're worried about taxpayer. My guy, you run historically the most corrupt state in the union.
Okay. You got to start somewhere.
This is not where you start, guy.
I don't know.
This is not where you start. You don't start in a spot where taxpayer money funds like 2% of what Brian Kelly gets.
Now I got to go find Guy. Where am I going to find that at?
Here's the thought. I don't know how to react to this because on one hand, honestly, I don't have a problem with Scott Woodward not picking the head coach. He is 0 for 2 in the biggest hires of his career. Now, I will also point out that, and I think this is the fun part, he is 0 for 2 in coaches that I was on the radio for both hires, and both times I went, this isn't going to work. You're not hiring what you think you're hiring. Jimbo Fisher was an okay coach who happened to get Jameis Winston. If Jameis Winston didn't show up, Jimbo Fisher is not a national champion. And he's a quitter. He quit on Florida State. And then you go to Brian Kelly, perhaps the most fraudulent and inauthentic person in college sports, to come down and bring his complete lack of culture to the most culturally sound school in the country. I got no problem with Scott Woodward not picking the coach. I kind of have a problem with the governor of a state going, I'm stepping in to run this thing. You're not a football guy either, Jeffrey. You're not. What are you doing here? All right, we'll talk more about this later on in the show. We got a lot we got to get to, including your water cooler cheap sheet. Now, see, I just did it right. Your water cooler do the thing.
Yeah, cheap seats. He was thinking cheap seats. Those don't exist anymore. The Toronto Blue Jays are 1 win away from their first World Series title since 1993 after a 6-1 win over the Dodgers last night. Rookie Trey Savage dominated, throwing 7 innings and allowing just 3 hits while striking out 12. Toronto had 9 hits, including Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 8th postseason home run and 4 other players recording RBIs. Game 6 and 7 are Friday and Saturday back in Toronto. The Detroit Lions have signed a 4-year, $180 million extension with edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson, which includes $141 million guaranteed. Hutchinson is guaranteed more money than any non-quarterback in the league. Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris said yesterday he is optimistic that starting quarterback Michael Penix Jr. will be able to return this week after missing last week with a bone bruise in his left knee. Hour number 2 and the water cooler cheat sheet, I could say it, coming up next right here on the Rob Brown Show. Pardon me while I bang my head against the padded walls and see if it helps. It could. I mean, it's probably not going to hurt. So, you know. Why does he look like that?
No, it's not a joke.
Wow.
That's what I just told Lonzo off the air, which I'll tell you now is 100% true. I forgot my pen at home today. I forgot the pen at the crib today. And when I got here and I busted out the notepad to start kind of write, I take notes as we go through the show. As I broke out the pen to start taking my notes, I realized I didn't bring the pen. And instead of first off, not a pen thief, so I wasn't just going to go grab one all willy-nilly because that's pure unbridled evil.
No, but you are a pen snob. That's the reason why you're not going to go grab one, because you want a specific kind of pen and nobody else is using it. So
that is only partially true. I did not go grab a pen because I hate pen thieves. I said that the other day. I hate pen thieves. But also because
there are extra pens laying over here.
Nope. The other part of that is that, yes, I happen to know that Captain America, Chris Evans down the hall, is also a aficionado of the Sharpie S gel, which has bounced back and forth. An aficionado?
It's aficionado.
Okay. Jeff Landry's in my head. All right. Jeff, I'm doing everything in my power not to revert back to coon ass right now.
Big fish. I have no idea what you just said. Maybe I should have pushed the button.
I happen to know.
I didn't know that Chris was not only a pen guy like you, but an arrogant pen guy. Shared an office with him for over a decade.
I don't know that he's arrogant about it. I just know he's a fan of this pen.
You didn't see the Lonzo, you're an idiot.
No, but I also
I've achieved many times from both of you.
I also know that you decide what people are thinking about you. You decide that all the time.
You've seen that smile. You've seen that smile from him.
What I'm saying is, I happen to know that Captain America, Chris Evans down the hall, has wonderful taste in pens. Rocks the Sharpie S gel, had a whole pack on his desk. So I went in there. Can I steal one of your pens? I will bring it back. And he told me I can have it, which I appreciate.
After saying
that's
you
a
don't
hero.
Want to steal a pen, your phrase was, can I steal a pen?
Yeah, I told him I'd bring it back.
Why didn't you? It's borrow. I mean, it's not.
Okay.
You're not taking it back.
Okay, semantics
you
guy.
It's
just a figure of speech.
Yeah, but you phrased it one way and then phrased it again, and it made you look a certain way.
It's a figure of speech.
I'm just trying to help you. That's all.
Ladies and gentlemen,
that's all I'm ever about is trying to help you.
We have got a lot we need to get to for the duration of this radio program, including what we are going to get to now, which is, of course, the top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports with your coworkers, your supervisor, your manager, your boss, your IT guy, your janitor, the guy that hangs out on the front porch out in front of the office that you don't really know if he works there or not, or if he's just kind of sitting around. But, hey, he's cool and he likes to talk about football, so we like to talk about football with him.
Do you work at Cracker Barrel or something? The front porch?
Not every building has a porch.
Yeah, because we ain't got no porch.
I do like a porch, though. Front porch sitting is a timeless
I'm all for porches and porch swings for sure.
The front walkway, doorway, entranceway, whatever the front of your building is, that guy. You know what I'm talking about. So you got to know what's going on. And if you got to know what's going on, don't worry. We're here to help because we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
It is the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports with whoever you're going to start talking sports with. This is what you're going to be talking about. Let's dive right in. Item number 1. I listened to 1 minute and 25 seconds of Jeff Landry sounding like 3/4 of my family, and my brain has just completely fried itself.
I just wonder what you would be like after a Ed Orgeron press conference. Or, as was mentioned earlier, a Henry McMaster press conference.
No, see, I got no connection with Henry McMaster. There's no old school Southern drawl where Rob Brown is from.
Okay, yeah, you don't. Yeah,
I don't have
that's
that.
That's not a McMaster.
I don't have that. What I do have locked away somewhere in the back of the noggin is the generation of coon ass that came before me.
You keep saying that? What is that word you're saying?
Coon ass.
What?
Because we eat raccoon. You a coon ass.
What's the second part of that word?
Ass. It's
okay.
Coon.
All right.
Ass.
All right.
Coon ass.
I don't get why. Okay.
That's old school. That's a classic derogatory slur about my fellow French Cajuns and Acadians
Oh,
down
okay.
from the bayous and the swamps.
All right. So
I listened to-
I wouldn't be allowed to say it.
No,
I wouldn't say
no,
it.
no, no.
I
I
wouldn't
can
say
say
it. I wouldn't say it anyway.
Right.
but
I
I'm
can
not.
say it because,
Okay. All right.
So, listen to like 3 minutes of Jeff Landry this morning, and my brain is just completely fried itself. It's great. It's awesome.
And the sad part is you're probably going to play him again later.
1,000% we're going to play it again later. I can promise you we're going to hire a good football coach to come coach the LSU Tigers. Yeah, come go Tigers.
You've already announced one, so I just don't. Maybe you want to do one.
Blue Jays 6-1 winners over the LA Dodgers last night. That is the third victory in the best of 7 series, meaning that as the Toronto Blue Jays head back to Canada on Friday and Saturday for game 6 and 7. They need to win just one of the two. The Dodgers must be perfect in those 2 games up in Toronto. Last night, Trey Savage was the story. And I got to tell you, when he got through inning 7, I looked at him and I said, Trey, you savage. My guy, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. The only shot he gave up was Kike. No, shut up. That joke's great. It's the most obvious one of all time, but like, it's right there. I could have done it. I could have done it in a Chris Berman voice if that had made it. I looked and I said, Trey, you savage. It's not a great Berman.
Actually, but I mean, out of all that worked best.
7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. Kike Hernandez took him yard in the 3rd inning, but that was it. 12 Ks, 104 pitches to get through those 7 innings. Trey Savage, a rook dog, a guy who played all 3 levels of minor league baseball before getting the call up late in the season. They just needed a guy to eat up some innings late in the season, and Trey Savage has emerged for these Jays. He was incredible. Last night, they went to Dominguez and Hoffman to close it out in the 8th and 9th. They gave up a combined 1 hit between those 6 outs of baseball. Blake Snell was the go-to guy for the LA Dodgers. Now, Snell got roughed up pretty good in game number 1, but remember, the Dodgers had a sweep versus the Jays who went 7. The Dodgers had like a week off from the end of the NLCS until the start of the World Series. So, historically speaking, teams that sweep their championship series end up losing game 1. It is the rest versus rust theory, and it would appear that in baseball, rust wins more often. Rust wins more often. This is a spot where Blake Snell had a bunch of days off, and the question was, will rest help or will rust hurt? And rust hurt him. He comes back out, and I thought last night, all right, you got that one out of your system. You have been absolute nails in this postseason for the Dodgers so far. Blake Snell gave up back-to-back dongs to the opening 2 batters of the game last night. First one went to Davis Schneider, who was replacing the injured George Springer. The second one went to Vladdy Daddy Guerrero Jr. The 2 took them to 2-0 Blue Jays before they put an out on the board before a baseball touched grass in that game. The Dodgers from the dish, 4 total hits. They had the Kike dong, and that was pretty much it. Kike had 1. Teoscar Hernandez did have 2, but he was able to do nothing with it. Will Smith had 1 hit. Nobody else touched the baseball last night. The Jays had 9 hits. All but one of their starters got at least 1 hit last night before the end of the ball game. What do you want, man? Like, the Jays were just the team last night. They have the momentum, and now they get to go back to Canada. They have not won a World Series in 32 plus years. The Canadians right now, due to, I'll just say certain things, the Canadians right now really want this title. I promise you, the loudest stadium of the year in any sport will be Toronto on Friday and Saturday nights. Friday, Saturday, if necessary. The Jays are a team that came into this like plus 175 to win the World Series. Now firmly in the driver's seat, up 3-2 and headed back to Toronto for the final 2. Now let's get to item number 2. Listen, I know that this is a story that only impacts one school, and that, of course, is LSU, but I do think it is very interesting nonetheless because it is a situation that could impact any public institution moving forward. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry called a press conference yesterday relating to the LSU Tiger coaching situation down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And in that press conference, Jeff Landry said that a couple of things happened. Number 1, he did indeed, as was the rumor,
He did indeed host the LSU Board of Directors on Saturday night after the Tigers lost to Texas A&M. We have pointed out the fact no team in college football has won more home night games in history than the LSU Tigers. They consider that a fortress. As the great Steve Spurrier once said, we must protect this house. Yeah, click, clack. They take great pride in winning at home at night. So to lose that game at home at night, not just lose it, but to get thoroughly and completely thrashed by the cult of Texas A&M was not good for Brian Kelly. He held a meeting at the governor's mansion where he invited the LSU Board of Directors, and they ultimately decided and concluded to fire Brian Kelly. Then yesterday, the press conference came out, and Jeff Landry said, I can tell you right now, direct quote, by the way, I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting our next coach. Who the hell's Scott Woodward? Don't worry, I'll tell you. That's what I'm here for. Scott Woodward is the athletic director at LSU. So the governor of the state of Louisiana held a press conference yesterday and said the athletic director will not be athletically directing, at least not in this situation. Now, Scott Woodward was also the athletic director at Texas A&M when they hired Jimbo Fisher away from Florida State University. I do want to be straight up about it. It needs to be said because this is being left out by a lot of people. He is not the one who gave Jimbo Fisher the long-term extension that increased his buyout to the highest in the history of college football, but he is the guy who signed Jimbo Fisher to Texas A&M before he left to go to LSU. Two other things that I think are massively important right now. He is the guy who hired Kim Mulkey to coach the LSU women's basketball team. That has worked out greatly. And he is the guy who hired Jay Johnson, who is the head coach for the baseball team at LSU, who has won 2 of the last 3 national championships. He won it in 23 and 25. He has been the head coach since 2021. Scott Woodward hired that guy as well. But he hired Brian Kelly, the most inauthentic and fraudulent person in college football. And he hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, which was obviously the biggest disaster of a hire in the history of the Texas A&M Aggie football program. So the governor of Louisiana stepped up and said, hey, look, that guy's not picking the new head coach. He did not tell us who was, which I find very interesting. And he did say the reason is he does not want taxpayers on the hook for another failed hire, although most college football coaches at a public institution are not paid by the taxpayers, or at least not the majority. The overwhelming majority of their contract comes from the athletic department. Most of the athletic department's revenue is brought in by TV contracts, is brought in by sponsorships, is brought in by ticket and merch sales. So I don't love it on one hand, but on the other hand, you're like, all right, but Scott Woodward is 0-2, and it's not that he's 0-2, because, hey, you're going to do your best, and sometimes you're going to fail. The problem is not that he's 0-2. The problem is that he's 0-2 with 2 of what I thought were the most obvious this ain't gonna work coaching hires of all time. Jimbo Fisher is a good coach. I do not think Jimbo Fisher was ever a great coach. Jimbo Fisher won a national championship at Florida State. Let's keep it a buck. He won that title because Jameis Winston showed up, and Jameis Winston was a once-in-a-generation quarterback for that program. That's it. Brian Kelly, LSU's different. It's special. It has got I think, maybe not the most unique culture, but the strongest culture relative to the community that school is a part of and the program at large. And, I mean, granted, you heard him talk a minute ago. Jeff Landry, clearly from that area. But at the same time, the hiring of Brian Kelly did not fit. The minute that guy grabbed the mic and said, I can't wait to get down here with my family. It's like, oh, dude, you could just say family. Like, that's how you say it. That's okay. We're not going to be mad at you. And 2 bad hires, 2 absolute whiffs, and 2 hires that I thought this isn't going to work. Like, it can't work, Brian Kelly or Jimbo Fisher at A&M. It felt obvious to me. So the governor yesterday says he's not going to pick the next head coach. He said, I'd rather let Donald Trump pick the next head coach than let Scott Woodward pick the next head coach. Here's my question. If that is the case, what's the faith in the athletic department to Scott Woodward to make good decisions? Again, Kim Mulkey, Jay Johnson, both great hires. Both have won a natty. But if you're the football staff and you got the governor who's not a football guy stepping in and saying, we're not going to let the football dude do the football stuff, do you have faith in Scott Woodward as the AD? Like, I think there's a lot of potential unintended consequences from Jeff Landry not inserting himself, but becoming the mouthpiece for all of this. We're going to talk again more about that later on in the show, but let's get to item number 3.
We had a bunch of news out of the National Football League yesterday that I wanted to get to very quickly. Carson Wentz back in the news. We told you the story earlier this week. Carson Wentz has been dealing with a bunch of injuries. He had a torn labrum. He had a cracked shoulder socket, which is a thing, fractured, but a fracture is a crack. You get it. Anyway, had to undergo season-ending surgery to repair the left shoulder. Wentz was asked, did the Vikings make you go out there? Did they pressure you? Did they push you to play? And Wentz said yesterday to the media, quote, "This isn't my first rodeo. I'm not an idiot. I know what I was signing up for going out there. Nobody was forcing me, pressuring me, any of those things," end quote. Of course, this conversation started because Carson Wentz was seen Carson Wentzing in pain on the sideline, and it looked like he was on the verge, if he did not get all the way to tears. Kirk Herbstreit went on to blow him up, which I hope Kirk is reflecting on his choices in that moment. But he said, nobody pressured me, nobody forced me, which leads me to the next question. Much like Kirk Cousins last year, did they know you were hurt? Did you lie about the severity of the injury? How did we arrive at a point where you were going out there playing on what should have been a season-ending injury before that game? How did that come about? I'm really interested at that. And I'm interested when you stack that on top of the Kirk Cousins story. We'll talk more about that later on. The Eagles have picked up a new defensive back. The Eagles have sent John Mechie III for Michael Carter II and a 2027 seventh-round draft pick from the New York Jets. The Eagles have two standout young quarters in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but they have not been able to find the third guy when they need to go into nickel and dime coverage. Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo have both on the team. Mixed results at best for both of them. So the Eagles made a move yesterday to go out and acquire Michael Carter II. That's a boost to the D backfield for Philadelphia. I found that interesting. The Lions have signed edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson to a 4-year extension. It is worth $180 million. That makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. He will make slightly less, about $1.5 million per year less than Micah Parsons. However, of that $180 million, $141 million is guaranteed. So Hutchinson will be paid on an annual average value, second highest of any non-quarterback in the NFL, but he does have more guaranteed money coming his way than any other player, non-quarterback, across the NFL. Hutchinson has played nearly 93% of the Lions' defensive snaps this season, the highest amongst defensive linemen. And, of course, coming off of that gruesome injury from last year sustained by Aiden Hutchinson, the Lions said, yep, we're ready, we're willing to invest. And for the 7 of you that care, Kellen Moore has made it official. Tyler Shuck will start over Spencer Rattler for the remainder of the season for the New Orleans Saints. Moore said, quote, Tyler starting, so we're not looking back on that. Obviously, the goal is to let Tyler play and get going, and Spencer knows that his role is to be the backup, and he's supposed to help Tyler in any possible way. He did an excellent job today running the scout team. Listen, you guys know I love Spencer Rattler. I still think Spencer Rattler has starter potential in the NFL. The reality is the Saints offense is stagnant. Do I think it is Spencer Rattler's fault? No, I do not. But you never know what one shift at one position, and the quarterback being the most impactful, you never know what it's going to be. And more importantly, here's the reality of the situation. The New Orleans Saints are going to have either the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft next year. There are a couple of guys that may be draftable next year. This isn't because they think Shuck or Rattler and one or whatever. This is 100%. Do we need to draft a quarterback next year? Is Tyler Shuck the guy, or do we have to draft another quarterback? Because if you don't, you can trade back. You can make up a bunch of picks. If you do, at least you know you got to go in, figure out which of the guys is going to fit your offense under Kellen Moore the best. We'll find out about that. We'll talk more about that. Probably not at some point, though. Again, probably. Stop. I hate it so much.
It was appropriate. It was, you were talking about, okay. Why are you so angry?
When we come back, there's been a history of players representing a team talking to or about legends of a team. There's one happening with the Giants right now. And ordinarily, Rob Brown is the guy who takes the side of the legend. Hey, that guy's earned the respect. You show him the respect. But I got to tell you, in a situation developing between a Giants legend and a current Giant, I'm kind of team new Giant, and old Giant needs to maybe shut his mouth a little bit. I'll tell you what I'm talking about when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
You better shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth.
All right, guys, stay right there. We'll be back in just a minute.
new heads that are like, yeah, but we do this and this and this better and whatever. And ordinarily, when that debate is spurred on by a new player to a team butting heads with a legend of a team, historically, even as a younger man, historically, my thought was always, yeah, I would probably not talk to a legend of the game that way, specifically a legend of your team. It's a really good way to get the fan base to turn on you. And if you get to a point where you're up for a contract, unless you are just a multi-year Pro Bowler, like that's not good for you. But there's one happening on right now that I'm kind of team the new guy. Dexter Lawrence is an excellent pass rusher for the New York Football Giants. Now, in fairness, Dexter Lawrence is not on the same trajectory that he was on last year. Last year, Lawrence had 44 tackles, 9 sacks, 18 pressures, 16 quarterback hits in 12 games before he suffered an elbow injury. Through this point in the season, he has 20 tackles, just 1 for a loss, a half of a sack, an interception, 10 pressures, 4 quarterback hits, and a pass rush win rate of 5.4% and a run stop win rate of 36.3% through 8 games. So he's nowhere near the trajectory he was on last year when he earned the Sexy Dexy moniker that followed him around the NFL. This year, being what it is, Carl Banks, who is, of course, a New York Giant football legend and is now a radio analyst for the Giants, also hosts one of the top New York Giants podcasts alongside Giants play-by-play announcer Bob Papa. Banks had some comments about Dexter Lawrence. He said, quote, Dexter Lawrence, nobody respects you anymore. Nobody. He would go on to say that he believes that Dexter Lawrence, who signed a big fat contract last year, is, quote, stealing money, end quote, from the New York Giant football team. Lawrence was asked about that, and he said, those are strong words. That's how he feels? Bleep it. That's what Sexy Dexy had to say. He went on to call Banks, and I quote, delusional, end quote. So this is interesting to me. And I'll tell you why. There's a couple of things that have happened to the New York Giants between last year and this year. Number one, they've added some more edge rush personnel. They've added some more pass rush personnel, meaning that the numbers are going to be spread out more thinly. You have added guys like Brian Burns over the years. You're going to see the numbers that are spread out quite a bit. But there's something else that I find very interesting here. I went and I looked up not just the results numbers for Sexy Dexy, pass rush pressures and hits and sacks and tackles for a loss and all that. But there are other stats that do not show up in the conversation of day-to-day fans that I think should be considered with an even higher impact than the numbers that are production, because these are the numbers that impact your production. Here's one that's very interesting. Sexy Dexy Dexter Lawrence is being double teamed over 75% of the time that he is lined up in a defensive role. 75% of the time. Dexter Lawrence has 2 NFL offensive linemen trying to block him 75% of the time. Now, if you are...
Say he plays nose tackle. That just goes with territory.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but I am saying if you are expecting the former Clemson Tiger to come up with 22 tackles through 12 games. I think the other part that you have to understand is look around the rest of the defense, because there are guys like Brian Burns whose pass rush numbers are up this year. Why do you think that is? Because Dexter Lawrence is getting blocked by 2 guys 75% of the time. I had a conversation before the season started where I was going on some podcasts and shows around the country. I was being asked to come on as a Panthers analyst on some different NFL podcasts and whatnot. And one of the things that I said I thought was a reason that Carolina was a threat to win the NFC South this year was the return of Derek Brown. And I told a few people, and some people were willing to hear the argument, and some people said, you don't know what you're talking about. I made the comment that I think that Derek Brown is one of the best 2 or 3 defensive tackles in the game. And one host specifically on one of the national pods said, wait a minute, Rob Brown. How can you say that? Even when he's healthy, the numbers aren't there. I said, yes, but I want you to do me a favor. I want you to watch the next time the Panthers play, and I want you to watch the next time that Derek Brown is starting at the nose tackle spot. And what you will see is Derek Brown is getting double teamed about 75% of the time. Do you know what it does for a defense when your nose tackle is getting double teamed 75% of the time? It opens up the field for literally everybody else. It opens up the field for everybody else. It opens up room for linebackers to roam. It opens up room for defensive backs to blitz. It opens up a world of possibilities for the second and third level of your defense to have an impact. And if I've got a guy who can guarantee me that they are going to use 2 blockers 75% of the time, I'm walking another guy up in the box. If they got 5, I'm bringing 5. If they got 6, I'm lining up 6. I am bringing up an extra guy. I am going to go 1-1 across the front 7. And I'm going to do that because I know that 75% of the time, you are putting 2 guys on my 1 guy. That means that if you put 2 guys on my 1 guy, I got 1 more 1 guy who ain't got no guys on him. And if I got a 1 guy who ain't got no guys on him, I don't care if he's the worst defensive player in the NFL. He's going to make a play for me in that spot. This is a spot where I get it. Carl Banks is looking at the numbers, and he's going, you just got paid. You're supposed to be a guy. You're supposed to be the guy. You're not getting it done. You're not making the plays for the money that you're getting. And I get it. When you're paying a guy as much as Dexter Lawrence is getting paid off of his extension, yes, you do want numbers of productivity. But I do think that it is something else entirely about a 27-year-old 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro team nominee. I think it is something different. When you look at a cat that 75% of the time guarantees a double team, which means that 75% of the time guarantees that if you're 1-1 across the front 7, one of your guys is going to be left alone to make a play. Or if you are +1 in the box, you got 2 guys. A guy guarantees you 75% of the time that you are going to have the opportunity for someone else to go unblocked and make a damn play. That is why if you look around the rest of the Giants defense, what you will see is that the numbers have come up for everybody else. I don't know that I have the patience to sit around and do this. You know what I would really like someone to do? And I know this is hard to be because it's kind of like hit versus error in baseball. Sometimes it's a razor-thin decision, and it's a bit subjective as to that was a hit or that was an error. I would love for somebody to go look at the Giants games this year, and I would love for somebody to go look at Brian Burns' sack numbers and the sack numbers for the rest of these Giants front 7. And I would love for somebody to give a quarter of a sack to Dexter Lawrence, a quarter of a TFL to Dexter Lawrence, every play that he is double teamed and an unblocked defender makes a play. I would love for that because I suspect that those numbers would look very similar to last year. I get it. Carl Banks is a legend. He comes from an old school time where none of this crap mattered. All that mattered was your numbers. And I get that. And I respect that. And I respect Carl Banks and the players that he was. Here's the deal. If you look at something and you only go, the numbers I care about are the only numbers that matter, and you don't care about the variables and all these other different things that impact a play, you don't know ball, brother. And that's dumb to say about Carl Banks, one of the greatest of all time. But if you look at Dexter Lawrence drawing a double team 75% of the time and opening the field up for at least one other guy to make a play, and you think, oh, you're not getting enough TFLs for me. Brother, you're not paying attention to how this defense works. Far be it from me to defend the New York Giants, but I will defend Sexy Dexy because I'm not going to have a guy taken down when he is playing unselfish ball because he's getting hit by 2 dudes every play so that someone else can make a play. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Vegas odds on like Anthony Davis about how quickly he'll get hurt in the season?
I do know that there are some books, not many, and most of them are like offshore illegal.
Because I just noticed him limping.
Yeah, he left the game on site with soreness. There are some books that will absolutely offer over/under games played, and they do it under the load management thing. Like, will LeBron play 60 games this year? And you got to factor in load management plus injuries, whatever. I'm sure that you can probably get that on Anthony Davis.
Not messed up.
Sunday visiting Green Bay. The Fan Upstate is your home for play-by-play of Furman Paladins football. Search the Fan Upstate on the TuneIn, Odyssey, and iHeartRadio apps. I'm Chuck Sanders on the Fan Upstate.
I'm sure you get some text from Luca after this one.
Up to the minute upstate traffic. An accident northbound 85 at Pelham Road has the left lane closed, so slow down and move left. Currently, the backup is to 291 West Road. And there is a crash now southbound 85 at Airport Parkway. You'll hit your brakes soon after you pass 290 East Main Spartanburg. Between Spartanburg and Greenville on 85, it's at least an extra 20 minutes. From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on the Fan Upstate.
Mad World Haunted Attraction is now open. Voted one of America's top haunts and #1 in South Carolina. Mad World is much more than...
With you on a Thursday morning. We got a lot coming up this AM here in about 20 minutes from now. We'll be joined by Lulu Kesson. We'll chat with her about the heart-wrenching loss to the Alabama Crimson Tide last week. And now the Gamecocks, as they make a run through what might be the hardest second half of the schedule of anybody in college football, have to go on the road down to Oxford, Mississippi to take on the mighty Running Rebels of Ole Miss. And I've got some thoughts on that. But we'll talk to Lulu Kesson in about 20 minutes, get her thoughts on that game. And then coming up at 9:20, a segment that has literally never once been forgotten or skipped over. Fight Club with the great Malonzo. We'll check in. And oh, by the way, great one. I got a very interesting message last night. Our next interview is lined up for next Wednesday as WWE comes to town for SmackDown. And I'm not going to reveal who it is because every time I do, it ends up either getting moved or bumped or canceled or replaced. I will very simply tell you that I am really excited to potentially be inducted as a member of the Secret Service. I'm really excited to say one particular superstar's name one particular way.
Wow.
And I won't say who it is.
Wow.
But she's my favorite.
Not in studio, though.
No, it'll be virtual. I don't care.
I don't care. This might be a GOAT addition to the Rob Brown Show stable. This might be a GOAT addition to the faction we have built over the years of pro wrestlers.
I don't know. We could have a Lacey Evans situation here.
We could. I don't think so, though. Not from the perspective of her being openly mean to us. But if she is,
well, if
in the weirdest possible way, I'll enjoy it.
If someone were to be disparaging towards Canada, I mean, no one on the show has a history of being disparaging towards Canada.
I absolutely would not. Couldn't fathom it.
I'm not going to do this because I'm going to say this now. So if I were to ask her, hey, Rob Brown has said that Canada is America's hat. What do you think about that? I'm not going to do that, though.
That's a nickname born out of love, respect, and admiration
the fact
for our
that
great friends to the north.
I'm telling you that now, which means I won't do that.
Our great friends to the north.
But I could have done that.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land. Listen, we'll see. But that's it. That's all we're gonna say about it. We're gonna let it be for there until it happens. But we'll let you know. Okay, I have a theory that I'm working on right now, and this theory was born from the firing of Brian Kelly this past weekend. Now, the firing of Brian Kelly this past weekend triggered a lot of conversation about coaching in college football from a million different angles. It has triggered the conversation about who's taking what jobs next year. It has triggered the conversation about who is and is not going to and would be and might be available, et cetera, et cetera. And it has triggered conversations about the requirements for success to be a head coach at the highest levels of college football. I've said before, I think that LSU is the best job in the country. That's an honest take. And I've said before that I think along with it being the best job in the country, it is also probably the most high-pressure job in the country. Because I will say that, Clemson fans, you think you guys have high expectations? LSU fans are borderline straight-up delusional with the expectations of that program. But their delusional expectations are also the reason that LSU has, I will say, for the sake of protecting myself, as much money as anybody else. I would realistically say they probably have more money than anybody else. I want you to think about it. One dude just stepped up and provided the majority of the money to pay Brian Kelly's buyout this year. One dude did that.
What if it was the governor that did? You find out it was him.
That'd be interesting.
And that's why he feels like that he should make the next choice.
It would be interesting. So here is the theory that I had. We've talked about the Rob Brown head coaching success platform. You must have a foundation of culture. Brian Kelly does not have one. There's no culture around Brian Kelly. You cannot be a me guy and have a culture that other people around you buy into. You can't do it. I want you to name me one. Even Nick Saban, not a me guy. Debo Swinney, certainly not a me guy. Shane Beamer, not a me guy. But if you are a me guy and you can't build that culture, I don't think you can be successful anywhere because that is the beginning of what you need. And then, of course, once you have the culture built, that is your foundation, you go to Rob Brown's 4 pillars of coaching success. Player acquisition, player retention, player development, execution. You got to have all 4 of those. You used to be able to have, you could do 2 of those things exceptionally well. Now you got to do all 4. But I would like to add something. And I don't know if this fits into the culture foundation or if it's a 5th column. But I don't think you can be an a-hole and be a successful coach anymore. I don't think you can be that old school, gruff, constantly and always militaristic football coach that you used to be able to be. And I think that's what Brian Kelly was, and I think it cost him his job.
I have heard many times on this station from various people who have said that there's no way that you can be a head coach in any sport without being a jerk.
I've heard that too, and I think that that's dead. Now, what I do think is true is you do have to be not a dictator, not a tyrant. You do have to be willing to lay down the law. And I'm going to play you a clip here in just a couple of minutes that one of my favorite coaches in the game right now has gone down that I think is great. You do have to say, look, this is the way it's going to be, and here are the expectations, and lay them down. But at the same time, there is a way to do that without being a jerk, a butthole, whatever phrase you want to use here. Brian Kelly's not that. And I think that became very obvious. And if you've been paying attention, it's been obvious for a while. But I think it became very obvious to everyone when he pulled Garrett Nussmeier from that game on Saturday and was kind of getting in the kid's face. And Garrett Nussmeier was like, yeah, no, I'm not listening to you. If you got players who come off the field, even if they are mad, Even if they're angry, you benched them, you yanked them from the game, and they're mad and they're angry, and they are willing to quite literally brush you off, walk right past you, go to the bench, and not interact with you again for the rest of the game. You're not going to succeed there, my guy. It doesn't matter if that one player is a diva, because if one player is going to do that and get away with it, that becomes infectious. And there's a few reasons that this theory kind of came up to me, and all of them kind of centered around reflecting on the time of Brian Kelly at LSU. The first is, and I say this one, and I mean this one more than anything else I'll say in this segment, and we talked about this yesterday. This is kind of a trailer hitched on to the wagon of what we talked about yesterday. I think the number one most important aspect of being a successful coach nowadays is you have to be authentic. And that doesn't mean that you have to be like bubbly and everybody loves you. And it doesn't mean that you have to be any particular type of way. You just have to be authentically your way. I don't think there's anybody more authentic in the game right now than Lane Kiffin. I don't think there's anybody more authentically in the game right now than Dabo Swinney. Honestly, I'll tell you one spot that I'm at right now. And I'm having a hard time kind of justifying it. The last couple of press conferences of Shane Beamer's, I'm kind of starting to see a bit of a different Shane. I'm kind of starting to see a bit of a different Shane, and I can't really put my finger on what it is. And Gamecock fans, I'm wondering if any of you feel this way too, but I'm kind of like I'm catching a different vibe than the Shane Beamer that we've gotten used to the last few years. And I don't know what it is. It might be desperate.
Think about how it feels when you're so close and this one little minor thing messes you up each time.
That's what I'm saying.
That's good. I mean, in life, when you're this close and it's like, oh no, I was right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of this frustration.
It might be desperation. It might be feeling the pressure that is being placed on him. It might be. And again, I just because I like to keep it a buck on the show, there have been rumors and accusations over the years that Shane Beamer is short-tempered and trends towards angry more often than he shows out in the public sphere. And it might be a part of that. That might be true. I haven't believed it, but that might be true. So with all that being said, we also went through the list of the highest paid head coaches. And with a couple of exceptions, the two being Brian Kelly, who just got fired, and Bill Belichick, who is not Bill Belichick anymore. And I think it doesn't take much to see that. Of the other head coaches, there's not one that I would look at and go, that guy's inauthentic. I've interacted with most of them, at least temporarily. There's very few of them that I walked away going, this is a charade, a facade. I've walked away going, that's who that dude is. I don't think you can get away if your authentic self is being a jerk. I don't think you can do that anymore. And I got a few reasons for it. The first is obviously, and it is the one that you guys have had the biggest gripe about. If you suck and your players hate you, they'll leave. 4 columns: acquisition, retention. If you're a butthole and your players can't stand you, they can leave now. Part of the reason, and I've said this a million times, part of the reason that I think so many coaches actively talked out about the transfer portal becoming a big part and a mainstay and like just a thing everybody has access to was my belief that coaches' jobs got harder. And one of the reasons I listed that their job just got harder was because now you can't just be openly a jackass to your players all the time. You have to make them want to stay with you. And if you are just all the time hammering down on them, who wants to be in an environment like that? Nobody. Nobody wants to be in that environment. And if you're in an environment like that and you can find a new job, which is not always easy out here in the real world, but if you can find a new job and it's going to pay you the same and you don't have to move and all that, you're going to take it. Well, college football players, they care less about the not having to move thing. And now they can get paid more. If they do, they're going to go. Here's the second reason: social media. Social media does 2 things for college football. Number 1, it allows the players to more readily speak out. Number 2, it allows everybody to more readily speak out. For instance, let's talk about Brian Kelly. When they had the accident that happened at Notre Dame, where he put the student up in the crane and the wind blew it over and the kid died, Declan McClain was his name. When that kid passed away, that was something that I think in college football in years gone by, you'd have seen a news article and then it probably would have just vanished off in the ether and people forgot it ever happened. In the social media era, it didn't just become a story. People were reaching out and they were finding this kid's parents and family members, and everybody was speaking out, and it became a huge deal. And then Brian Kelly gets to LSU and he does the family thing. Obviously not nearly as bad as what happened at Notre Dame, but it still wasn't a great moment. And what happened when he went family? He became the butt of the joke on the internet till right now. I'm still doing it. We're still doing it. Then,
Well, as long as he's alive, that's going to follow
yeah,
him. Yeah,
it's 100%. And then you'll remember that in his first year recruiting, there was this weird video where they did one of the photo booths where you stand on the platform and the camera swings around you a bunch of times and it like films you in slow motion or then speeds it up or whatever. They did that with a very highly touted recruit. And Brian Kelly, because Brian Kelly is all about Brian Kelly, just ask Brian Kelly and Brian Kelly will tell you. Brian Kelly, in a move that was absolutely confounding, decided he was going to jump up on that platform, which is not big. All right, it's maybe 3 feet. He decided he was going to jump on that platform with a player who's a big dude, fully outfitted in a football uniform and pads, and he is going to get behind that guy and dance with him on the platform in the spinny camera photo booth thingy. Now, is that really a huge deal? Is it something that you would have thought in the moment, this is not my best idea? No, not really. But it became, again, another butt of the joke for Brian Kelly. And in my head, I'm going, why would you not arrive at the thought of, maybe I should let this kid have his moment? I'm trying to get here and come here to get him to come here and be a star. Why not give this kid this moment? The third thing that happens here, and this is, I think, maybe the most impactful thing we've never talked about, is that college football fans and reporters have a larger platform and voice than they have ever had before. Back in the day, a head football coach could absolutely say, that guy can't cover the program anymore. He loses access. And if he's not writing articles in the paper or putting a podcast or putting a website up on the internet, he goes away. You could lose your job. It ain't that way anymore. Everything a head coach says and does is on the internet in seconds. I have gotten jobs before where I would go to a press conference and my job was very simply to open up my laptop and to quote the coach as he's talking and hit tweet ASAP. And there were people in other parts of the country who had my Twitter feed up, open, we're following it along, and we're making stories out of the quotes from Brian Kelly or whoever else. Back in the day, a coach could basically control the tone of the narrative in the media around his team. You can't do that anymore. If you are a Class A jerk to a reporter, as Brian Kelly did multiple times throughout the course of the season, yeah, you might go, oh, who cares? It's just the media. That's all well and good. Except for those clips now go viral. And that reporter, now they can have a podcast where they talk about that. And they go, I don't understand. I was talking about this, that, and the other. The narrative is no longer controlled by head coaches like it used to be.
Except for on coaches shows where you can decide to no longer take calls
Sure
because
thing.
some dude named Tyler calls. That's just a random thought. I mean,
Absolutely.
a Tyler name just popped into my head.
And let's talk about that for 2 seconds. What has happened since that happened? Dabo Swinney has repeatedly taken criticism for not talking to Clemson fans anymore. And every time anything goes wrong for Clemson, Tyler from Spartanburg starts trending on the internet again. Like that is a thing that is now attached permanently to Dabo Swinney.
I don't know why there's not a Tyler signal out there somewhere.
There is on Twitter. There is a guy, a Clemson fan, who every now and then when things go bad, he will post just a picture of the bat signal, but it just says Tyler from Spartanburg inside
Really?
the light.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it's hilarious.
Good.
Right? But again, that was a moment where Dabo Swinney, thinking old school football, thought, I'm going to control the narrative. No more fans who come in here and they're controversial and they ask me tough questions that I now control the narrative. And what he did was he controls the narrative for the 1 hour he's on the radio. But what he did was create this world where everybody outside of his radio show is going, is Dabo thin-skinned? Is he afraid of criticism? Is he afraid of pressure? Is he afraid of taking the heat? And now Tyler from Spartanburg is like a thing that will always be connected to the legacy of Dabo. Not because Tyler from Spartanburg was any different than any other Clemson fan, but because Dabo said, I don't want to face heat for an hour from fans who are calling the show saying, Coach, this isn't good enough. He tried to control the narrative by banning fans. And now it's bigger than that. It's worse for him than that. All of those things combined, you have to be now, I think. You have to be a player first coach now. You can't be a team first or me first coach anymore. You have to be player first because the narrative doesn't belong to you. Anything that goes wrong is blasted out on social media immediately. And if all that goes wrong and your players hate it and hate being there, they can just leave. They can just leave. They just can go to another place and play football and have the same chance to play. I don't think you're going to see guys like Brian. I think Brian Kelly in the 90s would have been one of the most successful coaches of all time. In 2025, those guys will not succeed anymore. You better be on the hierarchy of importance in a program. Players 1, program 2, head coach 3, and that better be the mindset of the head coach because if it's not, you will not work out. I'll play some audio later from Brent Key and a couple of other coaches that I think falls in line with that. Lulu Kesson talks Gamecock football. Next, Lonzo, who always controls the narrative when he does a sports flash.
And other times, if I get lucky. The Toronto Blue Jays are 1 win away from their first World Series title since 1993 after a 6-1 win over the Dodgers last night. Rookie Trey Savage dominated, throwing 7 innings and allowing just 3 hits while striking out 12. Toronto had 9 hits, including Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 8th postseason home run, and 4 other players recording RBIs. Game 6 and 7 are Friday and Saturday back in Toronto. The Detroit Lions have signed a 4-year, $180 million extension with edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson, which includes $141 million guaranteed. Hutchinson is guaranteed more money than any non-quarterback in the league. The Atlanta Hawks guard Trae Young left last night's 117-112 win over the Nets with a right knee sprain. It was feared the injury might be worse, but we'll get an MRI today to determine the severity of the injury and how much, if any, time will be missed. Young is averaging 20.8 points and 9.5 assists for Atlanta. Gotta do a thing.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, as we roll through the foremost electrifying hours of sports talk entertainment you are going to find anywhere on the radio from 6 till 10 on weekdays, if you ask my mom. We got a lot to get to. We've talked some college football on the radio program today. We're going to talk some NFL football on the radio program today. We've got to talk World Series. We got into it very briefly at the beginning of the show. We will return to that. The Jays did a win last night. They head back to Toronto. They've got 2 to win 1. The Dodgers must be perfect in Canada if they wish to go back-to-back World Series championships. I'll break down game 6 and 7 for you as the show and the week progresses, because we still do technically have one day. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is 8 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday morning, and you know what that means. That means it is time for us to take a little road trip right on down the road to Columbia, South Carolina, home of the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. And that is where we find a young lady who covers the athletic department of the Gamecocks for the Greenville News. That is where we find a young lady who does excellent work doing so. That is where we find the lovely Lulu Kesson joining us here on the program. Good morning, Lulu. Have you recovered from what I have to imagine was a bit of a disappointing Saturday evening in Columbia, South Carolina?
Absolutely, it was. Definitely very heartbreaking vibe around Columbia that night. Good morning. I'm good. I'm extra tired today, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you, as always, for having me.
Of course. The pleasure is ours. Let's dive right in, Lulu. Let's time travel. 88 in the DeLorean back to last Saturday. The Gamecocks in a game. They end up with a lead. They end up with an 8-point lead. And then the wheels came off. And I will start with the question that was kind of at the heart of the debate that we had on Monday. Lulu Kesson, in your opinion, was that more South Carolina found a way to lose the game, or Alabama found a way to win the game, or is it somewhere in the middle?
I think the easy answer would say somewhere in the middle. The reason why I honestly lean a little bit towards Alabama found a way to win was because this is an Alabama team that has a very, very high-performing, productive offense that was, in my opinion, a little underwhelming for 3 quarters. And yes, I do think that South Carolina shot itself in the foot at different times throughout the game. But to me, particularly the defense that, in my eyes, had been absolutely stellar all game, sort of allowing one touchdown in the last minute to tie the game. To me, it looked like, okay, this is a gas defense that played their what off for pretty much the entire game. I think Alabama kind of just hit a different notch and sort of dug, and credit to them, that was probably the loudest I've heard William Bryce all season. Obviously, South Carolina is known for their stadium, and I'm not saying that they've had bad fans before then. It kind of kicked it up a notch with homecoming, and credit to Alabama. I think they found a way to win.
So I've heard that a couple of times. Let me give you the thought to the contrary. I actually do lean more towards South Carolina ended up losing this game more than Bama took it from them. And here's my justification, and I want you to tell me, Lulu Kesson, am I overthinking this, or is there some merit to it? On the defensive side of the football, I thought for the majority of the game, South Carolina was doing a good job making sure they held the edge, keeping Ty Simpson in check, not allowing the running backs to be the escape. I thought basically they said, look, if you beat us with mid to long throws, so be it. It is what it is. But we're going to make sure that Ty Simpson getting out of the pocket and extending plays doesn't beat us. And we're going to make sure the running backs aren't there for a bunch of easy dump offs all day. I thought it worked out. On the offensive side of the ball, I think they finally cracked open the playbook and started doing what I've been begging them to do for a number of weeks now. You utilized Lenora Sellers. You started using different blocking schemes, adding different blockers, bringing guys in from the slot and lining them up as a wingback, but inside the tackle. There were a lot of different looks that we haven't seen out of South Carolina to throw Alabama off defense, off their rhythm when South Carolina was on defense. But then in that fourth quarter, when the game was on the line, it's like they kind of went back offensively to what they were doing earlier in the season, including on the play that Lenora Sellers ended up fumbling and giving the ball to Alabama for them to go win the game, which was, we're just going to run the quarterback off center again, something that has not worked all season long. I felt like, Lulu Kesson, South Carolina panicked a little bit in the fourth quarter. We didn't expect to be in this spot. They kind of panicked. They regressed back into what they did that didn't work, but they were most comfortable with, and that's why I walked away from that game disappointed.
I agree with that. That is 100% accurate, and I think that's a very that's a total way to explain. Yes, South Carolina did lose that game. And, I understand the number of timeouts they had was different at the time, but like it was not the same level of confidence or looked the same level of sort of like, okay, we're going to take this as the Missouri game, which was a pretty similar situation where they go and score late and then South Carolina gets the ball back with a chance to win the game and they go 70 yards down the field and score. I think that obviously it's an underperforming offense compared to last year, even compared to, everyone else in the SEC right now. But to your point exactly, I think that South Carolina didn't have that level, even same level of aggression from the first quarter as they did in that moment.
Yeah, that was the big problem for me. Was I just thought that there was a change in what they did that worked and went back to something that had not been working through the course of the season. That being said, we did kind of see vintage Lenora Sellers. We did kind of see the Lenora Sellers that we saw towards the end of last year that put him on the Heisman watch list. We saw him escaping a lot of tackles, being damn near impossible to bring down for Bama in a number of spots, making throws on the run, etc. My only question now is, you saw it work against Bama. Now you've been in a tough spot and you've seen the result of getting away from that. Do you think that against Ole Miss, do you think for the remainder of the season that Mike Shula will go back to that? Because again, when the pressure cooker got turned up, I think he went away from it. Do you think that we will see this Carolina offense more open moving forward? Because I got to be honest with you, that's the only way that I see this team winning more games down the stretch.
I'd argue you have to. Yeah, I think that it's exactly to your point. Like that's the only way this team has a chance in a lot of these games. And to be honest, it has to be a step in the right direction. I obviously a lot of people have thrown in the towel in terms of fans saying, all right, this season's over, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get, people have their opinions. People can decide to give up on a season whenever they want. It's their own choice. But I do think that Alabama was at least a big enough leap in a positive direction, very far from where they want to be, very far from satisfied. But if this Ole Miss game and this Ole Miss performance, regardless of how good Ole Miss is, South Carolina, if they're not taking a similar step forward, I think it's really bad news.
So let's talk then about this. So actually, let me take that back. I want to ask you one more thing because this came up a little while ago in the program, Lulu. I was talking about head coaches, and I believe that we have entered this new era of college football where the most important thing a head coach can be is authentic. And I think you look at the best head coaches around college football, they're all authentic. They can be whatever their personality is, but they must be authentic. And I think Shane Beamer has, over his time at South Carolina, been wildly authentic as a coach and as a person. But over the past, I really think 2 weeks, and you're obviously way closer to the program, covering these press conferences in person, having the one-on-one conversations, etc. But it feels like there's a different vibe from Shane Beamer to me. And I can't put my finger on what it is. I don't know if it is frustration with where they are, desperation because, you're starting to hear the fans start to chirp about maybe there's a change coming. And there have been over the years rumors that Shane Beamer may be a little bit short-tempered and just good at not showing that in front of the fans in the media. I can't put my finger on what it is, but I have felt a bit of a change in Shane Beamer when he is out in front of the cameras, out in front of the public. Have you gotten the same vibe? Has that discussion taken place between the journalists covering the squad, or am I making something out of nothing here?
Sorry, I just want to clarify. You're saying that you're feeling like he's being less authentic as of late in front of the camera?
Yeah.
Or did I get that wrong?
Not necessarily less authentic, but just like the personality feels different. And it may be authentic in that he is desperate or he feels frustration, or it may just be that the mask is coming down. I don't know if the Shane Beamer we've always had has been a cover for this one, or if this is just Shane Beamer who is in a spot where he's never really been before because the expectations were higher and he's not making them. And now there's, like I said, fans are starting to chirp about needing changes and he may be included in that conversation. I don't really know. I guess that's what I'm saying is I feel a vibe change, Lulu Kessin, but I can't really put my finger on what it is.
Mm-hmm. I think overall, maybe this is kind of a dumb take, but I think that a lot of people didn't necessarily realize what rev share would do to athletics and what it would do to recruiting. And I think that every coach right now is sort of dealing with this added layer of a constant reminder that the game that they all knew and the game that they signed up for is changing. That on top of every other coach seems like, Shane pointed out the other day, he was like, I don't know enough about the Brian Kelly situation to comment on it, but, LSU fired Coach O 2 years after winning the national championship. Dan Mullen was fired a year after going to the SEC championship. Like, he's well aware that that athletic departments can turn on you in an instant. And I think that awareness is probably going to maybe, turn into some type of, visual. It's easy to tell when someone's kind of on edge. That said, I don't think that there's been a huge difference. I think he was very much himself on Tuesday, laughing, joking. And I know people might, I saw a comment that was like, year 3 and 5, you have nothing to smile about a player. And I was like, we've lost the plot. And if you think that telling a 19-year-old they're not deserving of happiness just because they barely contributed in this case to a loss, then you're not going to get a winning team with that mindset or culture. So I do think Shane is overall himself. Last year they won their last 6 games. And so I didn't see, honestly, from, October 12th to December 12th when they didn't make the playoffs. That was the happiest Shane Beamer, kind of no reason not to be. And it's just been a while since he's had some reasons to be upset. And I'm still getting used to that because it was sort of like a misleading first year where someone joked, my friend who's a journalist got here in August, and he's like, I think I kind of just didn't understand, Clemson and South Carolina, I get here and they're fighting for playoff spots, and I didn't realize that wasn't going to happen every year. But that's all to say, I don't want to ever tell anyone, you're making something out of nothing, but I think that he is still his authentic self. Maybe just stress is coming out in weird ways.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I said, I can't really put my finger on it, so that may be what it is. I'm really intrigued to see what happens, and obviously a lot of that is going to be predicated by a little roadie down to Oxford, Mississippi to take on a top 5 Ole Miss running Rebels team. Yesterday, Lulu Kesson, I was listening to Lane Kiffin do a press conference getting ready for this game, and love Joey Freshwater. Dude's absolutely hilarious. But from the perspective of a football coach, I found his press conference very interesting because when asked about preparation for South Carolina, he gave about a 3-minute answer. But, and I may be reading too much into this, but it sounded a lot to me like Lane Kiffin said, if you stop Lenoris Sellers, if you stop the quarterback, and he talks specifically about how he's hard to tackle, he's hard to bring down, he can throw on the run, and all these different things make it pretty tough to stop him. And of course, they've got Trinidad Chambliss, who we'll talk about in just a moment. And then he talked about the other side of the football, and he specifically was mentioned the defensive line, but was obviously calling out 1 or 2 specific players in that spot. It sounded to me like Lane was pretty much saying, if we can stop Lenoris, and if we can slow their pass rush down, we're going to win this game. What's your reaction to that, and what are your thoughts on what South Carolina will need to do to pull an upset a week after they had Alabama on the ropes, playing a team that is very good, but not quite as good as Alabama, which makes it feel winnable to me?
Easy answer, but execution in the fourth quarter, obviously that's something that Shane harped on, and it's easy to say that after the Alabama game specifically, but Ole Miss blew a lead to Georgia. I'm not sitting here saying South Carolina and Georgia are the same football team, but you got it when you're in these situations and you're the underdog and everyone's counting you out. You have to look at every little thing you could take advantage of and kind of poke at. And although Ole Miss is an incredibly disciplined team, and Lane Kiffin is a really, really great coach, particularly one that can make in-game changes and just coach a game and a difficult game really well. It's tricky, and it's going to be a really tall task, but at the same time, if South Carolina plays with the amount of energy and the edge that they had from start and just kind of reverse it and finish it, I think South Carolina can compete.
I agree. I do think that this is for somebody who last week said, South Carolina fans, I wouldn't waste my time watching the show because I think Bama's going to blow you out of the water. I actually feel like this is a game that you can win. And it starts for me with, and again, we mentioned him a moment ago, Trinidad Chambliss, who is kind of, he took over the starting role midseason, has really kind of come into his own. I've referred to him a few times as the Ole Miss Lenora Sellers. It is a similar game. I don't think he has the arm talent Lenoris does, but he is an able-bodied runner. He's got some power to him. That being said, it kind of, to me, Lulu, feels like that really is what is going to win or lose the game for Ole Miss. And if that is their number one strength, it obviously matches up well with South Carolina's number one strength defensively, which is the pass rush. I will say, what was done to Ty Simpson last weekend must be done to Trinidad Chambliss. And if it is, I honestly think South Carolina's defense is good enough to slow down the Rebels, and then it's just going to be a matter of, does Shula open the offense back up, or do we regress back to screen, run it up the middle, punt?
Incredibly well said. Exactly. And South Carolina's defense, here, exactly what you're saying, has been really good at disrupting really great quarterbacks. And I think that they're on the upward trend as well. I know they've been obviously a little bit more consistent and they've performed better overall than the offense. So it's not just up and down, but South Carolina's defense, they forced turnovers. They had some big ones. They had like 4 interceptions that they should have, in my opinion, caught. And Clayton White was pretty honest. He was like, we got to be able to come down with those. But they were just incredibly disruptive to Alabama. And like you said, it's up to the offense. If the defense plays like that again, North and his unit, they have to be able to put some points on the board.
I hate to say this, Lulu. I want your thoughts. Last one, and we'll let you get back to your real life. This is a game that if I felt like I trusted Mike Shula to play to call the way that they called the first 3 quarters against Bama, I honestly would call for the upset here. I think that the strength of South Carolina's defense matches up well with the strength of the Ole Miss offense. I think what you saw South Carolina doing offensively last week against a very talented Bama defense will work even better against Ole Miss. I want to call the upset here because I think the matchups actually favor, to some degree, South Carolina. But I can't do it yet because I don't trust Mike Shula. Like, that's where I am with this program right now. That being said, what are your thoughts and reaction to that? And what is your prediction for Saturday?
I say yes, that's fair. I know I hate having to print predictions, and it's tricky. I feel like I'll probably print Ole Miss wins by 3, but I would not be surprised if South Carolina wins by a touchdown. I was wrong last week. I was like, whoever wins this game, I don't think it's going to be super close, because my friend was like, it could be like a field goal, and I was wrong. It was tied with 2 minutes left. So I mean, Ole Miss it's one of those where I kind of have the same feeling right now that I had going into the Texas A&M game last year, where the record was not great for South Carolina. Things weren't necessarily going well, but I was just kind of like, I kind of feel like they're going to win. And against Oklahoma, I said to myself, they have to win. I didn't have that feeling. This is a little different. I just sort of feel like they're at a point where a crazy upset kind of has to go their way.
Yeah, no, that's the boat I'm in. I feel like with what happened last week, this team's got to be desperate. They're got to be hungry. I know the players are in a spot. You've seen that in their press conferences. Like, they want to get it fixed. To me, this game, I think it is very winnable. I think the matchups are there for South Carolina. It really just comes down to, is the offense open back up like it was for 3 quarters against Bama, or is it shut down and it goes back to what it was the previous 6 games before that? Lulu Kessin covers the South Carolina Athletic Department for the Greenville News. She is kind and gracious enough to give us some time every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. to talk about the Gamecocks. Lulu, are you going down to Oxford, Mississippi?
Yes, I have a crazy day. I'm going to Atlanta, Georgia tonight for a women's basketball exhibition, and then tomorrow I'm driving from Atlanta to Tupelo, Mississippi.
Ooh.
And then on Saturday, I'm heading over to Oxford for a game. Sunday coming home, Monday season opener for basketball.
Good Lord, lady, you're going to need a freaking nap. All right, I am going to hit you when you are down there. There is a spot in Oxford called the Oxford Grill House. Promise you, if you go, it'll be worth your time.
Okay, yeah, wait. send it to me.
Done.
I'll forget the name, but yeah, perfect.
Done. You're the best. Enjoy your trip. Good luck. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Lulu Kesson, Greenville News. Appreciate her time every Thursday at 8 a.m. to talk Gamecocks with us. All right. Since this is going to be a short segment coming up because we gave a little extra time to Lulu because dang it, she deserves it and she's very good at her job. When we come back, South Carolina fans, with me or against me? I think this is a winnable game. I think the matchups favor you. I think that you've got a lot of opportunity. And on top of all of that, I think there's a very good chance that this might be, and I don't like using this word, but this might be the trap game for Ole Miss. This might be the one that they overlook because, hey, you are not a winning football team. And granted, it's the Citadel next, but maybe they've fallen asleep after two straight ranked games in the SEC and 3 out of their last 4 against top 10 teams. Is there a chance here? And if so, is it only Mike Shula that could derail it? Because to me, the answer is, yeah, obviously. We'll talk about that when we come back. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Stunned, shocked, blown away. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Jeff Landry needs to get with McMaster and get a plan to get Shula out. Hey, man, like, let's be real. Is there not a world in the future where governors start to become de facto athletic advisors, right? Like if Jeff Landry called a meeting with the LSU Board of Advisors, was like, yo, I want this guy gone. I'm not saying that is what happened in the conversation, but if it is, do we not have a world where there is the possibility down the line of governors saying it's a private institution, it falls under the purview of the state government, I run the state government, and I think what is happening here is bad? I don't know. That's part of why I'm so interested by this conversation. We're going to bring that back up later in the show. Y'all stay right there. South Carolina on the road, taking on the Ole Miss running Rebels down in Oxford, Mississippi, coming up this weekend. Look, there is one thing and one thing alone that is prohibiting me from feeling pretty good about calling this an upset alert. I would absolutely love to put this game on upset alert. Because again, as I mentioned, I don't think it was the case that the matchups, unit versus unit, were in favor of South Carolina against Alabama. And yet, you were in that ball game because you broke out a bunch of stuff nobody had seen you break out before. I don't know why you waited till that point in the season to do it, but you broke out a bunch of stuff nobody had seen you break out before. You changed up the scheme. You changed up the play calling. Defensively, you recognized what Alabama's strength was. You took it away from them and said, hey, look, if you beat us with the weak elements of your game, so be it. You beat us. But we're going to take away the parts of your game, your offense, that are best. And Bama spent 3.5 quarters not being able to beat that. And then again, and I'll tell you, it's not this past Saturday. It's not that I'm disappointed in Mike Shula, because I think disappointment effectively means that someone did not live up to expectations. The reality is the expectations for me from Mike Shula were not very high. This is why I said on Friday, I don't think this game is even going to be worth watching. And we got a texter, we got a caller, Dre, who called the show. And Dre said to us, look, I think that we can pull it off because we have Lenoris, we got a good defensive line, good pass rush, yada, yada, yada. And I said, I agree with all that, but here's the problem. If you have a Ferrari, but you leave it parked in the garage, what good is having a Ferrari? Like, that was my problem with Shula calling the games. And the thought that I followed that up with was, why would I believe that something that has been consistent in a pattern for 7 weeks is suddenly going to change in the 8th? Why would I believe that after 7 weeks, especially when you've had your back against the wall after the last couple, that suddenly something is going to change? Tigers don't change stripes. Leopards don't change spots. Gamecocks don't change feathers. Why would I believe that that is going to be the case? I don't know. So it was the case. That is what happened. Offensively and to some degree defensively, although I think you didn't really have to change much defensively. It was really just tactics within it. What I saw last Saturday, I think matches up exceptionally well with Ole Miss. The strength of your defense is, as has been mentioned a few times, the ability to hem the quarterback in the pocket and not let them start running free. Now, Trinidad Chambliss, different type of cat. This dude is the type of dude that, much like Lenore Sellers, though not quite as talented, this is the type of dude that, like, you are going to have to wrap up tackle. And dating back to the Mizzou game, when I'm on Hardy ran wild on you, brother. Dating back to that game, this is a South Carolina defense that, unfortunately for you, has gotten lazy and tried to arm tackle sometimes. And I'm going to tell you, this is a cat that can beat you with the legs. He put up 112 rushing yards against Tulane, 71 against LSU. He put up 53 against Oklahoma, 62 against Arkansas. He can get you if you arm tackle. If you play discipline, you don't arm, you wrap up, you wait for the cavalry, you can slow him down. He's had a couple of games. Washington held him to 15 rushing yards. Kentucky held him to 13. It can be done. So I think the matchups genuinely favor South Carolina to put this game on upset alert. I just have one problem. And I guess this is kind of an illustration of what has been frustrating me for your football team this season, Gamecock fans. I genuinely believe that the issue that you are facing is, once again, play calling. Because if we see, and it wasn't even necessarily like exotic plays as far as moving the football around the field. It was different blocking schemes, and it was different guys lined up in different spots doing different things. I brought up on the show 3 or 4 times. You're probably tired of hearing about it, but I can't tell you when I saw this play happen in the first quarter how excited I got about the rest of that game, despite the fact that I thought you were going to get hammered in that game. Slot receiver lined up wide out to the right. Lenoris puts him in motion. He comes all the way across the formation. He goes slot left. When the ball is snapped, He cracks down to the defensive end to hem that defensive end. Your edge is now here. You don't get to widen the edge out with Lenore's. Crack down. The offensive tackle chipped him until the slot receiver hit the end and hemmed him in. Then he pulled around the outside, got to the second level, went and found the linebacker. And then at that spot, it was Lenore Sellers coming off the edge. And I don't remember particularly what he did with the ball with that play. But the point is, in that spot, you can do three things. The quarterback can keep it, get to the next level. The quarterback can pitch it, get to the next level. Or you can run a fake option, have a tight end, backside wide receiver, near side wide receiver on the curl. Somebody get out into space and force the cornerback to make a decision. Cornerback comes up to attack the football. You drop it over his head. Cornerback drops back to take away the pass. Lenoris just keeps it and goes. I love that play because it was utilizing. It wasn't about what Lenoris and face on and whatever wide receiver would do, kind of running a football triangle offense there. It was about the fact that I hadn't really seen that blocking scheme utilized, and now you're doing it. And the defensive end and linebacker were just completely confounded by it. Like, they did not react well to that. Saw a couple of times where guys were coming from the slot, going into motion, but stopping behind the guard center and just acting as effectively a second-level offensive lineman in that spot. Thought that was art. Loved that. But then in the fourth quarter, you got away from it. And then in the fourth quarter, you just started going back to, well, what if we just run Lenoris off guard? Same guard that has been getting his ass beat all year long. Same offensive line that has had, I believe now, 5 different starting lineups over the course of the year. Why not just run back into that? The matchups work. The matchups work in a way that I would look at this team and say, this is an upset special for me. This is a game that I would look at and I would say, I don't know what the line is right this minute. I'll find it during the break. But if this line is 3.5 or better, like South Carolina plus 3.5 or better, I would take that line right now. I would take that line. I might consider a little sprinkle on the outright upset if that's like a plus 275, 250, something like that. But that's not it. That's not my issue. That's not my problem. My problem is, do I trust Mike Shula not to blow it if it is a close game? Do I trust him not to revert back to the things that he has been doing for the entire season so far that he didn't do for 3 quarters against Alabama, but then did do in the fourth quarter against Alabama, you know, when Alabama scored 2 touchdowns unanswered, won the football game? I don't trust him. The only reason I have to pick Ole Miss right now is because I am afraid that the game gets tight and Shula reverts once again to making Lenoris Sellers play like Drew Bledsoe instead of the Lenoris Sellers that had Alabama in a hole in that game. We'll talk more about that coming up later on. We'll set up some more of the college football games. I got some audio I want to play for you. All that and more coming up as we roll on with the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, be right back. Don't go anywhere. Michael from Simpsonville has texted the show on the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-326-3663. Michael said, Rob, the first 3 quarters had Sean Elliott's fingerprints all over it. The fourth, Mike Shula's incompetence, end quote. That's from Michael in Simpsonville. Appreciate that text, Mike. I find that interesting because I don't think you're wrong. I don't know that thought necessarily hit me because I would like to think that a lot of what was run in that game was in the playbook, but for one reason or the next, like we just didn't want to break it out and until it was too late in the season to, necessarily do anything other than fight your ass off to make a bowl game.
You don't think that maybe that the reason why they did it there is because because of matchups and things that they thought they would work with?
I don't know. I think that's a theory, but I don't know what level of matchup you thought worked for you against Alabama that didn't work against Missouri. I don't know what matchup you think was going to work for you against Alabama offensively versus their defense. What matchup you thought you had that all would make the difference against Alabama, but not Oklahoma the week before. And I certainly don't know why, if that was all in the playbook already, why it is that once you took your second or your third loss and you go, okay, now we're not fighting to try to be a 3-loss team that buys a playoff ticket. Now we're fighting to make a bowl game. Like, bowl ineligibility is a real possibility at this point. Why would you have not broken that out a game or two ago? I don't know. I just don't feel like that is the way that it would have worked for me. Granted, I'm just a big idiot, but that's kind of the way it felt to me. And I was like, I don't know what this is all about. So we'll see. We'll see if we genuinely get the first 3 quarters. And if we get Michael from Simpsonville texting us back and going, there it is, right? Because if we get, I'll put it this way, Mike, if you don't mind me calling you Mike. If we get the first 3 quarters of Alabama against Ole Miss, and specifically if you do that and you win the football game, which I think if you play first 3 quarters via Alabama against Ole Miss, I think you can and will win the football game. If you win the football game, and you do it by doing what you did in the first 3 quarters against Alabama. And if somehow, and I don't know how, but if somehow it was to get out that Sean Elliott was indeed running the offense, whether it's the coordinator or the guy who installed the playbook, if it gets out that was Sean Elliott, then my question is, how does Mike Shula see another day? How does Mike Shula see another day as the offensive coordinator of the South Carolina Gamecocks? That's my big question about that spot. If I see 3 quarters of Alabama, and then I don't see anything else after that, and it gets out, like I said, we talked about this earlier in the show. I said one of the reasons that you cannot be an a-hole of a coach and be successful in college football anymore, in my opinion, is the fact that college football coaches cannot control the narrative like they used to. There are elements of it you can control. We talked about Dabo Swinney being the perfect example. Dabo Swinney can control the narrative on his radio show by not allowing callers. But what happened literally the first time he tried to control the narrative by censoring the radio show? Tyler from Spartanburg, right? Or excuse me, Tyler from Spartanburg called in. And if Dabo doesn't close the listenership, because I think it was wasn't it the week after Tyler that Dabo said no more callers? I think that was it. Tyler from Spartanburg has now become like a thing in the story of Dabo Swinney. No matter what happens the rest of his career, if he goes on to win a bunch of championships after this, then everybody's going to say it was Tyler from Spartanburg that started that. And if he goes on to never get close again, everybody's going to say, should have listened to Tyler from Spartanburg earlier than they did. You can only control the narrative so much. And stuff is going to get out. Like, it just is. Because, again, every time that you add one more person to a secret, the possibility that secret gets out exponentially rises. Exponentially. This is the number one reason that I do not believe that the NFL is rigged, because it would take massive numbers of people to be able to pull that off. And it would take one person with a receipt to blow up America's biggest sporting league. One text, one phone call, one recorded message, one guy writing one book and proving the NFL is rigged, the whole thing blows up. I don't think it's rigged because I don't think you could pull off that level of conspiracy. I don't think it's possible. So, with all of that being said, I would be interested if we see the offense we saw for 3 quarters come out against Ole Miss, and especially if they win the game. Somebody in that organization would look at that and go, why would we want Mike Shula to stick around if Sean Elliott's the guy who installed all this and it worked? Why would we want that to happen? And if that was the case, that's going to get out. It's going to have some smoke to it, I think. So that is one thing I'll be paying attention to based on the result of this game. And if I see you guys go right back and revert back to the offense that got your asses handed to you by Oklahoma, cool, I'm done. I will be done. I will not just be done with this season. I will not just be done with Mike Shula. If the same offense comes out and gets blown out by Ole Miss, and I'm not even saying you got to win the game. I'm not even saying you got to make it close. You just got to show me that, like, you're making adjustments in reaction to what is happening week by week on the football field. If I see the same thing and the same things happen and it goes back to the team that got blown up by Oklahoma, by Vanderbilt, etc., if all that goes down, I have to tell you, I will be in here on Monday, and for the first and only time that it has happened so far, I would have to say, I think Shane Beamer is officially hot-seated. I think Shane Beamer, I'm not saying you have to fire him this offseason. I'm saying I better see a guy who busted to make some changes on that coaching staff and in that athletic department by next year. Because if he doesn't, I will have a real problem at that point. All right, since we talked some South Carolina, let me answer this question. Dewey texted the show and said, if Clemson loses to Duke this weekend, do you feel that would mean a change in Clemson would be needed? Dewey, I already feel that way. Let me tell you the change I think needs to be made at Clemson. I've already said this a few times. Clemson is a nepotism program right now. The overwhelming majority of the coaches on that staff are former players, Dabo's buddies, guys that are and gals that have relation with people in the athletic department. That staff is. This is not I think. This is a statement of fact. That staff is a nepotism program. And that was okay when you got Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson and yada, 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 and you were just really good. But if you're going to be a team that's fighting to be bowl eligible in a year where you had championship expectations, yes, I think the nepotism angle has got to go. I think there are 2 things that need to change primarily regardless of the outcome of the Duke game or the season at large. Number 1, I think the nepotism culture has got to go away. I think Dabo Swinney needs to focus less on, let me get guys in here who I know and who love the program, and more on, let me get good coaches. Let me get coaches who have proven themselves. Let me go. And you did that for both your coordinator spots, Garrett Riley and Tom Allen. But as I've said a few times, I think there is one more element of that, and this is change number 2. I think Dabo Swinney's got to trust coaches. I think he's got to let go and trust guys to do their job. And the argument I make is there is, in my opinion, no bleeping way that Garrett Riley is not handcuffed to the radiator right now. There's just no way he's not handcuffed. There's no way. Because if you spend 5 minutes watching the offenses Garrett Riley was coordinating at TCU, and then you spend the last 2 years watching Clemson's offense, it's not the same. It's not even not the same. It's not even similar. It's not even, it's like, okay, well, it's a TCU shade, but they kept the Clemson offense. No, it's not. It's the same as it has been at Clemson for a very long time now. I think Garrett Riley's handicapped to the point that I have and will again openly ask the question. Was Garrett Riley hired by Dabo Swinney not to be the offensive coordinator? Was Garrett Riley hired by Dabo Swinney as an answer to the constant barrage of criticisms of Dabo needs to stop promoting Dabo guys, Streeter, Godwin, etc., all Dabo guys? Does Dabo need to stop elevating Dabo guys into coordinator positions because none of them work? And I think it is a very fair question to ask. Did Dabo go hire Garrett Riley not because he believed Garrett Riley's offense would come to Clemson and change the game, but because he just wanted a brief respite from the, I think, loudest, up until that point, loudest criticism of Dabo Swinney, which is, you're a nepotism program. Every guy is just a guy that you've elevated. You have yet to go out and try to find the best guys. You just find the guys that Well, they love the paw. They love the Tiger. They love Clemson. They love the campus. They love the stadium. And that's why they get the job. That's not a reason to give a guy a job. If loving something is a reason to give a guy a job, I'd be the head coach of the Saints right now. That's not how it works, right? So regardless of the outcome against Duke, I already think changes need to be made. Now, if Clemson does lose to Duke, I would say this. I think it's a complicated scenario because, and I've said this to you since the preseason, Duke's a good football team. Are they elite? Are they championship caliber? Are they Indiana, Ohio State? No, they're not there. But they are maybe, as far as like talent on paper goes, maybe the most talented team they've ever had. And it does revolve primarily around Darian Mensah, their quarterback, a portal guy, got paid what? I think he was almost at Carson Beck amounts of money to quarterback at Duke. But it does revolve around him. And when he's playing good football, Duke's a good football team. I don't trust Manny Diaz. I don't think he's proven yet that, like, he learned what went wrong at Miami and has fixed all of that now to be the head coach at Duke. Here's the other thing that I think makes this interesting. Penn State's looking for a coach. I do not think Lane Kiffin's going to Penn State. And I don't think that any of the old guys are coming out with one exception. I actually think there's a chance Urban Meyer goes to Penn State. But that's a different conversation. If he doesn't, I think Matt Rule, I'm not saying he has, Matt Rule may have eliminated himself from the conversation by getting his asses kicked by Minnesota. I think he might have taken himself out of the conversation, which means that if Lane Kiffin's not going there, Penn State is on the hunt for a new head coach. Do you know who's been mentioned as a potential suitor there? Manny Diaz at Duke. Manny Diaz's name is in the hat for Penn State, which means that if Manny Diaz wants to go to Penn State, and let's keep it a buck, with all due respect to the Blue Devils, why would you stay at Duke when Penn State comes a-calling? If Manny Diaz wants his name at the top of that list, winning games is how you do it. And even if it's not a good Clemson team, beating Clemson for Duke is a big thing. That's a highlight reel mark, right? That loss that you guys took at Duke a few years ago is still probably the biggest win in recent memory, maybe long-term memory for the Duke Blue Devils. So I think it is very possible Clemson loses this game if Darian Mensah is on top of his game. And the reason the conversation is complicated is, on one hand, if you are Clemson, the expectations are, we don't ever lose to the Duke Blue Devils. On the flip side, the conversation is complicated because this might be the best the Blue Devils ever had been. This might be the best Duke Blue Devils team of all time. And it's again, largely because of Darian Mensah, who might be the best quarterback they've ever had. Daddy Dimes. But outside of that, he's in that conversation. This team has taken 2 losses to top 12 teams, 1 loss to Tulane, who is very much in the discussion of a playoff spot as the G5 rep. The Tulane loss isn't great, but it was on the road, and it's against a pretty good Tulane team. I'm not saying Duke is great. I'm saying Duke's 3-1 in conference right now. I'm saying it's a respectable team behind Darian Mensah. So on one hand, do I think that's like, oh, that's it, we lost to Duke, Dabo Swinney's got to go? Not at all. Do I think it's we lost to Duke and now we have to ask the question of why? Absolutely. So I'll answer your question this way, Dewey. I already think things need to change. I think the nepotism has got to stop. I think the coaching staff's got to be wiped clean. I think there's a couple of guys you keep. Obviously, Tom Allen. Honestly, I don't know about Garrett Riley. Now, I don't think it's Garrett Riley's fault. Like I said, I think he's handcuffed. But at this point, if you're Garrett Riley, and that is true, he probably wants out anyway. So I think you keep Tom Allen. There's like a couple of position coaches that I like, but I think the CJ Spillers of the world got to go. I think you clean out everybody that's a Clemson guy, and you go around the country, and you hire the best position coaches available, and you pay them good money to come to Clemson to get it fixed. That is the thing I think has to be fixed. Then the second part is, how much more desperate do we get if you lose to Clemson or if you lose to Duke? And that will be answered by, how do you lose to Duke? If they blow you out of the water and it's 45-17 at the end of the game, yeah, we're having a real tough conversation on Monday. If it's 27-24 and Darian Mensah goes off for 275 through the air, 85 on the ground, 4 touchdowns responsible for, and you go, that was just a baller balling, probably a less intense conversation Monday. I know that's a lot going on, but let's be real. Football does not exist in a either-or binary world. It's all complicated, and it's all based on what is happening in real life. All right, let's take a break. When we come back here in the final hour of the show, a couple of sound clips about college and from college coaches I want to play for you. Got an NFL situation I find really, really interesting, and I'd like to circle back around to that conversation about Jeff Landry, the governor of Louisiana, getting involved with those LSU Tigers. We'll talk about all that more in the final hour. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax. If you smoke, grab a cigarette because you're going to need it after Lonzo's Sports Flash.
Stop it. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry told assembled media yesterday that athletic director Scott Woodward would not be involved with hiring LSU's next football coach. Landry did not provide a plan for who will make the pick, but did meet with LSU officials at the governor's mansion Sunday. He also openly criticized Woodward, who hired Brian Kelly as well as Jimbo Fisher during his term at Texas A&M. The Toronto Blue Jays are one win away from their first World Series title since 1993 after a 6-1 win over the Dodgers last night. Rookie Trey Savage dominated, throwing 7 innings and allowing just 3 hits while striking out 12. Toronto had 9 hits, including Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 8th postseason home run and 4 other players recording RBIs. The Detroit Lions have signed a 4-year, $180 million extension with edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson, which includes $141 million guaranteed. Hutchinson is guaranteed more money than any non-quarterback in the league.
Highway 14 at Woodruff 5 Forks is also jammed up tight. From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic
Your unofficial Rob Brown lockdown. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show. Only on
Off we go into the third, the final, the best, the money. Oh, the fourth, the final, the best, the money hour of the Rob Brown Show. I forgot we got to do 4 hours. I didn't forget we have to do 4 hours. I forgot this was the fourth hour of the 4 hours that we have to do. Hour number 4.
How can you forget this?
Ooh. You want to know something weird that is completely irrelevant to radio, and I will get in trouble for going off the rails here, but here we go. Welcome to the Rob Brown Show. I don't know when, why, or how it happened, but I cannot Ric Flair woo anymore. Something happened in the old vocal cords. Woo! I can't do it anymore. I don't know where it had. That was like a staple of me for forever. Woo! Like that's it's not there anymore.
Frozen vocal cords. Or
I don't
something?
know.
You know, maybe sometimes it's just it's something in your head.
I don't know.
Or have you lost it? Listen, you are still loud. I want you to know. So it's weird that you've lost the loudness.
Yeah,
in the
but
woo.
it's got that like, you know, it starts here and then it goes up to the top of it and then it kind of skates back down. It's not that now. It's just a woo. Like it's
you
not
know what
there
it
anymore.
is. You know how your voice has been cracking a lot lately. It's cracking on that.
I don't know. Maybe that caused it. I don't know what happened, but is what it is.
Kane says on the stream that your diaphragm's going out.
I mean, that might be it. I don't know.
Could be.
I don't know.
Maybe it's cracked.
I don't know. Maybe I cracked my shoulder blade and my vocal cords. Who knows? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a lot of things that I want to get here on the radio program, but I did want to get a couple of sound bites in here real quick for you. Let's start with this one. This is kind of like a mild audio blitz to some degree. And then there's a couple of sound bites that I actually want to make a segment out of. So I'll play you a couple of quick ones real quick. Lines of what I've said very frequently. And particularly for me, I love when pro athletes kind of put themselves on our level. I think, especially when you're younger and it lasts into your adulthood, I think it's very easy to look at athletes and kind of see superheroes, right? Because when you're a kid, like athletes are superheroes. And then because you spend so long as a kid believing that athletes are superheroes, it can be difficult, even when you are an old, to kind of drop that sentiment for some reason. So I do like it when athletes are kind of like, no, I'm just a normal dude. Like Miles Turner, who was on George Kittle's podcast, which, by the way, he and his wife do a podcast, George Kittle does, and they call it the Kittle Things. It's a good name. It's a good name. Miles Turner joined them on the podcast for this conversation.
This is a Cloud City Boba Fett, or Cloud City right here, which has a Cloud City Boba Fett in it, which, if you know Lego, you realize like how lucrative and how hard it is to come by.
Is that like the original one too, right?
That's like, yeah, that's the original one, the 1, 2, 3, 4 set.
Bro, I remember my mom taking me through a Target and I wanted to buy that, but it was a little out of our price range at the time. I wish I would have bought it. That thing is so sick.
Bro, it was hard to find, and people don't realize that just that little minifigure, that Boba Fett, that original, is probably worth about $2,500 to $3,000 just to even find that. So in its own box, yeah, just the figure itself. Yeah, I got Aang right here. So this is from Bricker Bills, and like, you know, it's not really the Lego. If you never heard of Bricker Bills, they got a bunch of dope stuff, bro. Like they got a whole bunch of like customized stuff. So that took like, I think it's like 5,000 pieces, and these are a bit harder. There's the instruction manual. You're literally going like brick by brick by brick by brick all the way around.
Wow. So you built that?
I built that for sure. I'm really into this, bro. Like,
yeah.
For real. Like I know people kind of see it and think it's kind of like gimmicky, but like this is like my life, bro. Like I enjoy it.
So George will be over soon.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, man. When you come play Cowboys, man, come holler at me.
How about Miles Turner, absolute dude / big time Lego nerd? My man had a wall of Lego stuff behind him, specifically pointed out the Cloud City Boba Fett. And then he had full, I don't know what it's from, Zoe, off the top of my head. You will. The anime dude that has the blue down arrow on his forehead.
He said Aang from Last Airbender.
Well, over my head. I don't know what that is.
He said, yeah.
He has that. It's like a full bust of that, 5,000 pieces. Big Lego dude. That was... I don't judge nerds for how nerdy they get. That was even too nerdy for me. I'm like, I don't know that I got 5,000 pieces worth of Lego set in me. I've got like a Luke Skywalker Lego X-Wing. It's like 70 pieces.
Here's the thing, though. You have mentioned to me, and I'm going to put it out on the air because I don't care. I mean, get mad at me if you want that you do puzzles with your wife on.
I love a puzzle.
And here's you waiting to see what is he going to say.
I was.
There's just not much of a difference. I'm in the middle of putting together a One Piece model of one of their ships, and it's difficult because they're really small pieces, and I get hand cramps And since I was a kid, I don't know how it has to do with circulation. So it's a problem. So it's definitely a process. And I've always been I used to love 3D puzzles. I would love to do Legos, but I can't afford that. Neither can
ridiculous.
you.
Nope.
The only NFL players can afford that.
Sure can't. That is 100% true. Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves on a heater right now. No Luka, no LeBron. Austin Reeves goes off. It's a game-winning shot. He's got a 51-pointer in the bag right now. And it's not on Twitter trending topics anymore. And I'm okay with that. Let me tell you why.
I'm not, because I'm struggling, but that's okay.
Last night, after he had another game and after he went off for a game-winning shot, by the way, the Lakers, kind of interesting right now. Luka's a little dinged up. LeBron's out for another couple of weeks at the minimum. And what are the Lakers turning to right now but like a couple of just average-looking white dudes that are carrying the squad right now?
Well,
it's wild.
The future looks like it's going to be Luka and
Austin Reeves.
Absolutely. That's weird.
So Austin Reeves hits the game winner. He goes to do the sideline report and interview last night, and this happened.
I'm sure you get some texts from Luka after this one.
And LeBron. They'll probably tell me I suck because I missed like 14 shots.
Well,
get back, my brother, and LeBron. Everybody get back.
Austin, thank you. Congratulations.
Appreciate you.
So probably getting some text from Luka and Braun right now, huh? He goes, yeah, they're going to tell me I suck because I missed like 14 shots, but could y'all hurry up and get back, please? I love that. I love it for all three angles. I love Luka and Braun sending bleep talk text to Austin Reeves after he went 51 one night, game winner the next. I love him just kind of laughing it off and then screaming, can y'all get back, please? And then I love at the end, and I know you can't see it because it was audio, but like the entire Laker team came around and started doing like the huddle jump thing around the guy because they're not a bad basketball team and they don't have two of the best players in the league available right now. I love all of that for Austin Reeves.
The thing is, also, both Luka and LeBron posted something on Twitter. LeBron's cannot be read on the air.
Yeah. It included a beep.
Yeah, it did. Wow. I mean, when you get your chance to shine and you do, I mean, what kind of a step back does he take, though?
I got to tell you, like,
can he play like that when both those guys are on the court also?
If homie can go off for 51 and can go ice water in the veins to knock down the shots he was knocking down last night, especially in a win, I'm here for it.
Well, yeah, it's a perfect position because the other team can say, well, we're going to double LeBron or we're going to double Luka. Well, if Austin Reeves is out there too, look at what he's doing now without them.
And here's the best part about it. Here's the interesting part about it. Last night, because the Lakers don't have those guys, they had to roll out a starting five of Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Ayton, and Austin Reeves. So, Austin
I hate
Reeves.
to say this, but that sounds like G League team.
It 100% it does. That's kind of part of the the funny behind it. So one of those players is a cat by the name of Jake LaRavia, who wears number 12. Jake LaRavia is a 6'7" power forward out of Wake Forest. He was a first-round pick to the Minnesota Timberwolves back in 2022. Now he plays for the Lakers. Funny enough, the Lakers were playing the Timberwolves last night. And while Austin Reeves went off for 28, Jake LaRavia went 10 of 11 from the floor for 27 points. And at one point in this game, a game in which, by the way, Anthony Ant-Man Edwards did not play due to injury, Ant was sitting on the bench, and this happened. Now, it's hard to hear right there, but what you heard was a fan somewhere in the distance as Jake LaRavia knocked down his, I believe, 8th or 9th field goal attempt. Again, 10 of 11. And oh, by the way, 10 of 11, 5 of 6 from 3 went Jake LaRavia for his 27. As he knocked down yet another 3, a fan somewhere in the background screams, "Who is number 12?" To which the camera, and I got to give huge props to the production team for this because catching this in time was absolutely cinema. The camera spun over to Anthony Edwards, who was on the bench because he's dressed out or not dressed out and not playing. Anthony Edwards looks at the guy, throws his hands up, and says, "That's what I'm saying. I have no idea." This kid is cooking him, and my favorite part was, you drafted him. He was on your team. He could have been your dude. At any given point, you could have had Jake LaRavia out there going 10 of 11, 5 of 6 from behind the arc for 27 points for the Timberwolves at any given time that they were missing, as they do regularly, players due to injury. You sent him to L.A. for a bucket of big league chew, And you got big league chewed up last night by Jake LaRavia. Who was number 12? I don't know. Yeah, he was one of your dudes. Dudes like Ant-Man. He was one of your guys. He could have been you're out. He could have stepped up and done that for your Timberwolves, but alas, no, it did not happen. By the way, if I recall correctly, I believe Anthony Edwards was on the team when they drafted Jake LaRavia. I believe he was literally a teammate of this cat. I love it. I got to tell you, and maybe it's just me, Anthony Edwards is doing a spectacular job of taking himself from guy who could very well be facing future of the association to guy that kind of nobody likes. Like he's entering his Kevin Durant burner phone era right now. They are begging for somebody to be the face of the future, and he just refuses to do it, man. All right. I would like to, actually, I'm going to save, let me save these clips. Let me save these clips. I will play you one more here, and it's going to lead into a segment we're going to do in the next segment. Final segment of the show. We'll split between a quick review of World Series game number 5 last night, and Fight Club next. So we'll push this to the last one because I've never forgotten about it.
Wow, you made it 3 hours and then you forget in the fourth hour.
No. I didn't forget.
Yeah,
I just remembered.
You forgot at the tease at the top of the at the top of the last hour.
I didn't know such thing.
You did.
I'm trying to.
And I was wondering if you would remember.
Hey, I'm trying to play some clips here, Alonzo. You're interrupting my clips here. I want to play a couple of clips real quick before we go because we have Fight Club coming back up next, and I've never once skipped that segment. We never will. Brent Key. Brent Key, after the Georgia Tech Rambling Wreck won a football game last weekend, went to do his post-game press conference. And I don't even want to say anything. I'm just going to play it for you.
Yeah, I know you don't like to talk about last year, but last year Fran Brown took some quotes out of context a little bit.
I don't give a crap. We just won a football game, man. It was a well-fought football game. 2 competitive coaches. Look, keep going.
Well, so I imagine, given that was probably maybe the most disappointing ACC game you guys played last year too.
In your eyes?
Yeah.
They're all mine. All of them were.
Yeah.
All of them that we didn't win were disappointing.
How nice was it to have the performance you guys did and play a complete game against an opponent that you didn't play as well against last year?
Faceless opponent, guys. Like, for me to sit up here and tell you that that game meant more to me than another game, now I'm a hypocrite on what I tell the players every week, to have a faceless opponent and play to our strengths and play to be the best version of ourselves.
Football guy. He's like, listen.
How is that not cliche though?
Football guy.
I mean, you were talking about people about cliche, and it's like, we got to be the best team that we are. We don't worry about the opponent. All that. That's cliche.
I don't think that's what he was saying. Because I go to the middle of the segment when the guy said, all right, you didn't play as well as you wanted to last year, and this was one of the games that you were disappointed in last year, whatever. And he goes, every game we lost last year was my biggest disappointment. Every single one of them. And I think what he's saying there in that spot is we are not going to be a team, and I do think some teams get trapped by this. We are not going to be a team that says that one opponent or one game is more important than all the rest. And we know that, like, you're going to do it. For Clemson, South Carolina, Clemson, that is the biggest game you're going to play all year. Like, unless you make it into a national championship game, that's the biggest game you're going to play all year. It's going to happen for some rivalries. That's what makes college football great. But I believe Brent Key when he says, we're not going to treat Miami any different than we are going to treat Clemson than Florida State. I believe him. And let me tell you why. Brent Key also did a podcast yesterday. He was on with T-Bob Hebert on Barstool. He was on T-Bob Hebert, the son of course, legendary New Orleans Saints quarterback Bobby Hebert.
Thank you for explaining that, because is T-Bob is his actual name like T-Bob?
T-E-B-O-B. It's T-Bob.
Really?
That's a very Southeast Louisiana thing. Yeah.
Is
T-Bob.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's T-Bob Hebert. So he had Brent Key on, and he asked him. Well, I'll play the question and the answer from Brent Key.
This is something that I always like kind of picking the brains on of current head coaches and guys that have been in the profession for a while. You have a team right now that has a culture of kind of toughness and grit. And from afar, you appear like a coach that gets on their ass and like coaches them hard. But you see some coaches nowadays kind of lamenting, well, you can't do that. They're going to do this or that. How do you I see you shaking your head. So kind of what's your opinion on that? How do you coach the modern player?
I know it sounds stupid, man, but I'm very honest with them. I mean, they're very honest with us. And we coach them hard. We practice hard. We train hard in the off season. I mean, it's old school now. I mean, it's over 1,000 reps of live tackling in preseason and during spring ball.
Damn.
And look, I've been very vocal and outspoken that I believe players should be able to capitalize on their opportunities that, for NIL and rev share, right? And I want these guys to have that opportunity. We're going to put things around them to help them be successful with it, opportunities to invest, opportunities to do things with that money that, probably they can at other places. But I'm honest with them. And look, when they mess up, we tell them there's punishment involved. There's discipline we're trying to instill. But I do not believe in cowering down. And football's been around a long time. And I've worked for 3 men really or played for. And that was my high school coach, Jack Wood, in Birmingham, Alabama. That was George O'Leary and Nick Saban. Right? And all 3 of them are the exact same when it comes to what's important in football.
I love it. And it goes with what I was saying earlier in the show is I don't think you can be a b-hole of a coach anymore. I think you can be you. I think you have to be absolutely authentic. But I think that, and I think this is all kind of factored into that, I don't know that there is anything more important in college football in 2025 than what Brent Key just said, which is straight up honesty with the players. I mean, in every aspect of it. I think that, for instance, if Lane Kiffin is genuinely being looked at right now as the next head coach for Florida, LSU, not Penn State, but Penn State, whatever. If he's being looked at, I honestly think the best thing he could do in this spot would 1,000% be honest with the players in the Ole Miss Running Rebel locker room and be like, hey, guys, listen, like this is on the table. This is something I am possibly going to take, and I just want to be upfront and let you know where we are. Because what is not going to work out for a guy like Lane in the long term is if he straight up, as some coaches have done, lies to his players, says, I'm not taking it, I'm not interested, it's not happening, yada, yada, yada. And then at the end of the season, one day after the final game, gets on an airplane and flies to Gainesville or flies to Baton Rouge and takes the job. Not because the guys in Oxford, Mississippi would have a problem, but because if you are a kid looking to go play at one of those schools, and granted, there's not many places you're going to elevate above Florida or LSU, but at that point, you're like, that coach is an active liar. And the players in the locker room in Oxford, if he goes in there and says, don't worry about it, not thinking about it, not taking it, whatever, and then he takes it, man, that's going to be on Twitter in like a minute. He'll be like, oh, coach told us in the locker room that day he wasn't going. He wasn't leaving. He was staying here with us, and we missed our transfer portal window because of it. Or granted, one would open up if he leaves, but you get the point. I think in that spot, you would be in a spot where future players potentially for Lane Kiffin or at LSU or Florida might go, that coach is kind of a liar and kind of a backstabber. Is that the type of guy I want to play for? And there may be some guys that go, yeah, but he's really good, so I'm good. There also may be some parents that go, I don't know that he's going to teach my kid the life lesson that I want them to learn. I don't know if that's the right spot. So I appreciate that at Brent Key. Look, man, I'm going to be honest. If you suck, I'm going to tell you suck. If you don't suck, I'll tell you where you're doing great. But I'm just going to keep it a buck. And I think that might be that, and be authentic might be the 2 most important things a coach can do. When we come back, it's Thursday. It's 9:20. You know what that means. A segment that has never once been forgotten about, overlooked, or not considered. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the great one to take over. Fight Club. It's coming up next on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Damn it. I think that's
the heck was that, dude? Wow. Is that T-Bob's actual voice?
Yeah, I've been listening to him for years.
I'm T-Bob.
He played offensive line at LSU for a long time. He's an offensive lineman. He's not like a quarterback like his daddy. Okay. He's a big SOB.
You should change your name to T-Rob.
I did for a long time when I did rock DJing. I did call myself Robbie Abear as my on-air name for a while. BRB dudes and dudettes, stay right there for me.
Welcome into the Fight Club. We are going to talk a little bit of Saturday night's main event. But before we do, I don't know if you knew, it is the season, the Halloween season, which starts tomorrow. And made me think, what are the best wrestlers to dress up as for Halloween? So I made a list. I didn't ask Rob to make a list just because I want him to just do it spontaneously, because I prefer that over canned answers. I just came up with 7, and these are mine, and I'm curious about your guys' favorite. My number 1 is Macho Man, and Joey B on the stream. The first and last answer is Macho Man. Macho Man is number 1. But here's the thing. If you are going to dress up as a wrestler for Halloween, and if you're trying to figure out, can I do this? Should I do this? If you can't do the voice for Macho Man, do not dress up as Macho Man. Okay? Because you've got to be the full macho package. You cannot just be, oh, wow, you look just like Macho Man, and then you talk with a high-pitched voice. It's just not going to work. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just can't. You can't do that. But my number 1 is Macho Man. My number 2 is Bray Wyatt, just because that's another. By the way, you don't have to worry about the voice if you can't do the Bray Wyatt voice. I mean, that's just be as creepy as you possibly can. I try to mix a little new with old. My number 3 is Uncle Howdy. I know it's the same thing, but Uncle Howdy's kind of creepy, and I had really considered doing that this year, but I didn't. My number 4 is The Undertaker. If you can pull that off, that's pretty cool. I think you have to have a certain build and a certain size head to do that. And also, you don't have to talk when you do that, unless you can just rest in peace. You could do that. I'd probably do it better, but I'll cough for 3 minutes. My number 5 is the Road Warriors. If you could dress as the Road Warriors, really, you should do that all the time. With the shoulder pads.
It's going to work that way in July.
The shoulder, around here, no one would notice. Shoulder pads, face paint. Number 6 is Nikki from the Wyatt Six. Creepy little girl Nikki. If you can dress up as her, I think you should do that.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, I think Stoneman could probably pull off that. And finally, Scary Sherry. But that throw some old school in there.
Not one I expected. I mean, yeah, but still not one I expected.
You also have to have, if you're going to do Scary Sherry, you got to have a rusky voice. I mean, you just got to do that.
Okay, I'm here for it.
All right, give me your list.
Mine is a dramatically old schooler than yours. I didn't really add a lot. I'm not going to put them in any particular order because I would actually need to sit down and think about that, but I am just going to give you the ones that came to me off the top of my head. Number 1, I think everybody's number 1 is Macho Man. Oh, yeah. Everybody's Macho Man. I'm going to go number 2 because a lot of the guys on the list, I think, are guys that are recognizable even to non-wrestling fans. Hulk Hogan. Now, would I? No. But I know he's the most recognizable wrestler of all time. So Hogan would be on the list. Number 3, Ric Flair, but only if you have the robe. And I'm not talking about something like, I took a blanket. No. All right, I got to have the bow. I got to have the feathers wrapped around the sleeves and the neck. I got to have the bedazzled on the outside. Like, it needs to be good. Anything like, don't go to Target and get a pink bathrobe and think you put off the Flair. You ain't.
Here's the thing, though. Can you dress up as 4 Horsemen? Because, I mean, you can pull off Flair, but
here's the thing,
you have 3 buddies that can pull off the rest of the Horsemen.
If you go as the 4 Horsemen, you're going to end up with everybody seeing Ric Flair and then being like, who are the rest of these people that are walking around with you? Like, for me, if I'm going to a Halloween costume party,
then you can punish them as Arn Anderson. I mean, and you legally can do that, I believe.
I don't think it's legal, but I'm willing to test the rules. Number 4, don't go with a knockoff mask. You need to find somebody who's got some artistic ability. But if you know somebody who can pull off the Ultimate Warrior face paint.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimate Warrior. It's got to be the face paint. Can't do the cheap mask. All right? That's terrible.
But again, I think you got to have a physique to do Ultimate Warrior.
Buddy, none of us have the physique to do any of these things.
I disagree.
No.
I could be Kevin Owens right now.
Okay. That one doesn't count.
So, but as far as the Ultimate Warrior goes, like him and Lex Luger back in the day, some of the guys that were just so cut, you're not going to do no Scott Steiner. You're just not.
Okay. Number 5 on my list, I am going with a Rob Brown Show Armada member, Orange Cassidy. Now, in fairness, is OC going to get you as recognized around the party as everybody else? No, not really. But you get to that's just the best vibe for a party. You just walk around and be super casual and care about nothing. And on top of that, just what a vibe. And if you can double points if you can get your own face on the t-shirt to then wear in costume.
All right. So when Orange Cassidy said in the studio, did you once think I could never be that cool?
Yeah. The entire time.
All right.
The entire
So,
time.
I mean, that's the thing. Same here.
The entire time.
He just sat over there. I'm like, dude, is just so cool. I just can't do that.
And my last entry that came to me off the top of my head, and I'm going to say I like this one a lot because it gives you some level of versatility. Again, face paint, no mask. The Stinger, man. Like, you can go with early 90s Stinger, Surfer Sting with the multicolor and the bleach blonde hair. You can go with long-haired black and white Sting. You could go NWO Sting. Or you can go now like end-of-career Sting, who is now just like, yeah, bleep it. I got really gray hair, but I'm still doing the black and white.
You left out Joker Sting.
Yeah.
You could do Joker Sting.
There's 100 Stings you could do, and I think they're all relatively recognizable. But as somebody in the age of 40 now, as somebody who grew up during the NWO storyline, the OG black and white Sting with the baseball bat and the long black hair with the black and white face paint is the way to go. Again, face paint. Don't half-ass this. Don't get a cheap mask off the internet. Do it or do not. There is no try. Macho Man, Hogan, Flair with the robe, Ultimate Warrior with the face paint, Orange Cassidy with your face on the t-shirt, Sting with the face paint. That's my top of the head list.
Well, I love it. I did my homage to Sting a few years ago when I was dressed as a mime, and I just basically went with Sting face paint, which is really hard to do if you don't know what you're doing. And Sting will always be my favorite wrestler. I was asked the other day, I forget who asked me, if you had a finisher move, what would it be? And it was Scorpion Death Drop. I mean, that's one of those things I think could actually do real damage in a real fight if you could get the position right.
I'm going to go, I actually have a finishing move and have finished with a finishing move.
Did you notice the braggadocio?
Oh, it's straight up a humble brag.
I don't blame
Straight
you.
up.
Do it.
Now, in fairness, my finisher was assigned to me, which I think is like the mark of you've done something. And it wasn't just assigned to me. It was assigned to me by the Hall of Famer Bullet Barb Armstrong, which is way before even Lonzo's time. All right.
Wow. No, my
finisher.
It was not before my
way
time.
before Lonzo's time.
Fine.
It was assigned to me by the legendary Hall of Famer Bullet Barb Armstrong. He told me, I want you because you've got some weight to you. I tried to get the choke slam going, but he was like, no, you're tall and that's just overutilized. You know what I want you to do? I want you to hit a fall back into the rope, rebound, not like running, kind of like just a lay into the rope, come off of it and drop, just a leg drop to the throat. And I'm like, oh, the Hogan leg drop, got it. And he goes, yeah, but I want you to make it yours. And as far as I'm concerned, it is not the Hogan leg drop. It's the Rob Brown leg drop. And it forever shall be. Because Bullet Bob Armstrong said so, and who the hell are you going to fight?
Did it lead to victory?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a finishing move. That was the finisher. Absolutely. I am
There
1-0
you
and
go.
retired from professional wrestling. Unless anybody around here running an indie company wants me to come out and be a manager / valet / talking head, in which case I'm very much available and we'll take a bump.
How about a chair shot?
I'll take a chair shot. If
Okay.
it gets me on the show, absolutely I'll do it.
All right.
I'm dumb. What do you want? Like, I'm dumb and I will act that way.
All right. Maybe back in the day, I'm too old to do all that stuff. I would love to take a chair shot, though. Not really. No, I don't want it. Choke slam, though, I think would be kind of cool. Just to be up in the air going, am I going to die right before you hit?
It hurts.
Yeah. Well,
Can confirm.
You would know. I wouldn't.
Can confirm.
All right. WWE Saturday night's main event. I will let you know this is not on NBC because after other deals were made, this is just on Peacock. So if you don't have Peacock, you can't watch Saturday night's main event. And instead of starting at 8 like it would when it was on NBC, it is starting at 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock Saturday night. There are 4 matches. Let us start with Penta versus Rusev versus Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship.
Penta versus Rusev versus. Give me that match because I got to tell you,
Dominic
I don't
Mysterio.
know. Okay, I don't know what the card looks like yet.
Dominic Mysterio, the current champion, double champ. I believe he's still double champ. I think he's still a AAA champ. He may not be, but I think he is.
I think they are because I think they're going to keep that on him for a while. He is the most over thing in the world. Give me, you know what? Give me Dom. Like, I would very much love to see Rusev or Penta get an opportunity to go. But neither one of them, like Penta had a really good run going when he first showed up. And I think the reason why is it was just kind of a jab to the eye to AEW that we got your dude. But since then, they have not really given Rusev or Penta anything to do at all. And considering Dominic Mysterio is a dude that can walk into any arena and tear the roof off it just by being there, They're not going to de-strap him at this point.
All right, I disagree with you on the Rusev not getting anything to do. His run against Dominic has been pretty good because it's. I mean, someone's got to lose. It's allowed Dominic to pull out more Eddie Guerrero moves and things like that.
Right, but that's what
win.
makes him Dominic Mysterio right now.
Right.
Like, taking the belt off of him, you don't get that.
No, I agree, and I think he's going to win. But the only way his star continues to grow is if he's able to do that against bigger names. All right, the next match is Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill for the WWE Women's Championship. Tiffany was getting beat down. Jade came in and saved her and then beat the mess out of her. Her acting is still not there because you could see it coming from a mile because she turned a little bit too early before she was supposed to hit her. And it's like, okay, she's getting ready to hit her. And then she beat her up pretty good. Is it time to put Jade Cargill over Tiffany Stratton? I say yes. I say Jade Cargill wins the belt.
Is it time to? No. It is Tiffy time. However, they are going to, because at this point, like, I think this is kind of one of those times where you've got to give a wrestler opportunity, as the old expression my mom would use, or get off the pot is a phrase I've heard many times. I think that's where it is for Jade Cargill. We are going to strap you. We are going to give you the chance to be face of the women's division, and it is up to you to grab the brass ring or not. Will she? I don't know. That being said, it is her time. I think it is still Tiffy time, but they don't.
But Carolina Spartan has DM'd us on X and said Penta needs to win. He's over. Crowd loves him.
I love
Put
Penta.
It on him.
I love Penta, but
none of us are smooth operators the way he is, and I think I love him too. But Dom's too big of a deal right now. Take it off of him. All right, 2 more matches. Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Here's the problem: they have nobody to go at Cody Rhodes until Vegas, probably, when it's probably Roman, maybe. Do you give the belt to Drew? I mean, usually they give it to him and he holds it like for a minute and then someone takes it. And there's no money in the bank stuff to take it away from him right now, but I got to go Cody.
I do give it to Drew McIntyre, and it is specifically for the reason you just said, which is you've got really nobody else in the bag to go after Cody Rhodes right now. And if that is the case, that's kind of where Drew McIntyre excels, is like he can be a for real, genuine, threatening champion for a while, but a guy that eventually you can take the belt off of, put it back to the good guy. And not only does it allow you to put it on whoever you want, but on top of that, it allows you to kind of reset psychopath Drew McIntyre all over again, which is honestly his best work overall. So that being said, like, I would think this is a perfect spot to put the belt on Drew McIntyre. But again, they're not going to, because Cody Rhodes is the face for the youth, and they're not gonna risk that for any reason.
And finally, for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship, we've got CM Punk versus Jey Uso. I think it's obvious should be a gimme that CM Punk should win this, unless they've been setting up a Jey Uso turn. Does it happen now? Does it involve MFTs? It could. I don't know. But I think the easy bet would be to go with CM Punk.
I think that is the easy bet to go with. I don't necessarily love it, but
although Jimmy could cost.
I mean, Jimmy could,
Jay the
like
belt,
you said, the MFTs. There's no guarantee you don't have maybe Roman show up or anybody. There's a million different ways that this thing could go one direction or the other. But I will say, It is just, you've got an opportunity to put the belt on CM Punk, which is what, not us, but the people have been clamoring for a while now. You give him that carry, and you can either give him his true for sure, like you are the main event at WrestleMania, main event at WrestleMania, or you can have somebody shocking take it off of him down the line, in which case you kind of reset Punk as a chaser, which is, again, probably where he's at his best. That being said, Punk, leave my guy L.A. Knight alone.
Such a loser. There's a reason why
you're a loser.
Never going to win a championship.
You're a loser.
He's just not. Go somewhere else.
Why?
He's just not.
Lonzo hates wrestlers that get over organically.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Dom Mysterio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nepo baby.
Just because I don't like
Nepo baby.
L.A. Knight. I'm not the only one in the building who doesn't like L.A. Knight. So,
Back after this, we wrap this bad boy up. The Rob Brown Show's on the radio. It's the Fan Upstate.
Is it better to be a mid-carder who wins mid-card belts or a main eventer that always loses?
I mean, honestly, I think there have been some legends that have been able to just be mid-card staples. Like you carry, you can be the show relief, you can be a cool-off match while still having the belt on the line. You can be a main event if you need to. I'd be perfectly fine. Would you rather be guy who has like a 20-year career as a perma mid-carder or guy who has like a 7-year career, but you're champ for 3 of them? Like, I think I'd rather be a 20-year mid-carder.
I think it depends on who I beat for those championships.
Undertaker was in a car accident? Yes, he was. At Whole Foods. Undertaker was at Whole Foods.
I saw he was trending, and I couldn't find out why, but now it's taken away from me. So that's fine. Is he okay?
Oh, apparently this is a story that it's not recent. This is a story that he told about a car accident that happened in the past.
Okay. All right.
Unless he got into another one, but let's see. Undertaker said he went to Whole Foods to buy steaks, which no, he didn't. He was just trying to save himself because he's like, yeah, Whole Foods, but I was buying steak. I was buying steak at Whole Foods. Let's see. I'll tell you a funny story, though, about that because it's got a 4-inch lift on it and it's got big 38-inch tires on it. I love setting up there and being able to see everything. A couple of weeks ago, I'm at Whole Foods. I went to buy some steaks. I was going to grill some steaks, and I backed into a spot at Whole Foods. I get in, throw the steaks in the truck, and I pull out. The truck is so high that I didn't see the car next to me. I ran right over the front of his car. My back wheels ran right over the hood. The owner of the car witnessed the entire thing, but instead of anger, the fan was thrilled. I mean, like, oh, you got to be bleeping me, man. I can't. Unbelievably, it was a fan. I mean, obviously, I probably wasn't paying as much attention as I should, but I couldn't see because it was lower like a Mazda and had lower to the opposite of those opposite. It's like opposite. Those back wheels ran right over. Undertaker said that the fan was laid back and thought it was cool. I guess that his car got run over by the Undertaker.
Well, I hope they exchanged information and you know, and that guy shows up with a neck brace tomorrow or whenever. I was in the car. It was so traumatic. I was beeping my horn. He ignored me. He looked at me and he rolled his eyes back in his head. You shouldn't be driving like that. You can't see.
Was it or was it not pass interference? It wasn't called. Was it pass interference? No, because it wasn't called. If a man's driving 80 and a 30 and he's not given a ticket, is he speeding? Yes. Now I'm emotional. Anyway, I pride myself in being able to take emotion out and just using logic and reason and all that good stuff. And I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. Emotion's going to get me sometimes, like when my co-host decides to be a troll live on the air for no good reason at all. It's my whole career, dude. That's also fair.
Don't hit snooze. Hit play. The Rob Brown Show. Now morning 6 to 10 on the Fan.
The Fan upstate.
Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
Well, I've got to scramble. He's fine. One more. Oh, okay. Let's just do that.
Wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
Turn on, leave on. Afternoons 3 to 7 on the Fan. Upstate. From the Ingalls Market Studio, the Fan.
The Fan. Upstate. 97.7 FM Greenville. 97.1 FM Spartanburg.
Always live from the Free Odyssey app. Now, the Infinity Sports Network. Rise and shine, sports fans. Grab your coffee and a jolt of sports on the front.
We talked about this very briefly and earlier in the show, but the more I thought about it, the more I talked myself into a couple of different conclusions. If you have not heard it, Jeff Landry, the governor of the state of Louisiana, has now gotten involved in the LSU coaching situation. What we know so far is that there was a board of governors meetings that took place at the governor's mansion on Saturday after the loss to Texas A&M. Brian Kelly was fired on Sunday, Yesterday, Jeff Landry held a press conference. Now, I'm not going to play the whole clip. I'm going to play you a couple of seconds of it so you can kind of get the vibe. And then I have a really interesting thought about it.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. You know, I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful. And we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly. And we're going to put metrics on it. Because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country and then leaving the taxpayers on the foot, to foot the bill.
So a couple of thoughts very quickly. Number one, and I saw somebody point this out earlier, and I thought that it was interesting. LSU does not have a school president right now, which means that right now, until they find a school president, the governance of the school is up to the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors, of course, reports to the governor. He's in charge of that. So technically, it really is Jeff Landry who is running the show for LSU via a Board of Governors until the school gets a president. Then that school president will work with the Board of Governors. But that's all aside. There's two other things I find very interesting. The first is, and I do want to point this out, Scott Woodward, who is the AD at Louisiana State University right now, who is the guy that Jeff Landry's talking about, saying, he's already failed twice. He said he's the reason Texas A&M was owed $70-something million. That is not entirely true. Scott Woodward is the guy who hired Jimbo Fisher, but he is not the guy who gave Jimbo Fisher that big-ass extension that pumped his buyout up to over $70 million. That was Ross Bjork. Bjork has since left A&M and is now the AD at Ohio State. So Scott Woodward did hire Jimbo Fisher in a coaching move that I didn't think was going to work at the time, but he's not the reason that Jimbo Fisher's buyout was north of $70 million. He did, however, hire Jimbo Fisher and Brian Kelly. And the point that I made earlier in the show was those are two coaching hires that I can tell you with great definitiveness, I knew they were going to fail, both of them. I called that shot. Jimbo Fisher when I was down in Florida, Brian Kelly when they fired him here. I knew that those were going to fail, and they were going to fail for a number of reasons. Number one, Jimbo Fisher is a good coach who got lucky stumbling into a generational quarterback, and that's not something you can guarantee. And Brian Kelly, because he's the most inauthentic person who, for whatever reason, wants every program to be all about him, which is not going to work in Louisiana, a school in LSU that is very proud of the culture that they have built around their state, around their community, et cetera, et cetera. So with all that being said, those two were obvious failures as far as I was concerned, and they both turned out to be failures. So I understand to some degree why you maybe don't want Scott Woodward to make the call. But at the same time, if you don't trust him to make that call, why would you keep him on board in the job, right? Now, I pointed out earlier, you do have to give him credit for other hirings. He hired Kim Mulkey. Kim Mulkey has obviously won a natty for the women's basketball team. He hired Jay Johnson, who was the baseball coach. Jay Johnson won 2 national championships, 2023 and 2025. Pretty good hire there, too. But why do you keep him on board if you don't trust him to make the right hire for the football team if the governor is going to take over? But I had a couple more thoughts that I wanted to throw in there very quickly. The first is this. This is kind of a bleep show for LSU right now, right? It's kind of a bleep show right now at LSU. And if that is the case, if you're Lane Kiffin, is that where you want to be? If you're Lane Kiffin, do you want to go to a school whose head coaching position is surrounded by a bleep show right now, where you've got a governor who is, I don't want to make the assumption that he is either A, playing politics, or B, he genuinely really cares about getting this hiring right. But I would point out that a couple of the things he said weren't necessarily true. It is not necessarily true that Scott Woodward is the reason Texas A&M owed over $70 million to Jimbo Fisher. That was Ross Bjork. And it's not necessarily true that the taxpayers foot the bill for the incorrect hiring of Brian Kelly. That's not true. It is not. It is the athletic department, whose primary source of revenue is TV deals, distribution from the conferences, sponsors, private donors, boosters, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, I want to, if the best thing in the world for LSU is that he genuinely cares and he's going to put together a council of football dudes who are going to say, this is the guy, this ain't the guy, whatever. And they're going to be able to come up with an offer to get whoever they want, including Lane Kiffin. But I mean it when I say, if I'm Lane Kiffin, is that where I want to go? Is that where I want to be? Do I want to? Yes, it might be the best job with the most resources, and it might pay you more than Ole Miss. But you are the king of Oxford, Mississippi. You can do anything you want there. That is not going to be the case at LSU, not until you show up and you win them a ring or two. And if I'm sitting there watching, and I got a governor over here who's saying he wants Donald Trump to make the pick, and I got a board of governors over here that report to him, but they're also split politically from him, and there's no school president that can kind of act as the unifying force of all of this, and I got boosters that are willing to fork over plus $40 million to fire the old guy, which means if they turn on me, there's no question I'm out. Is that a bleep show that I want to jump on board with? Or do I go down to Florida where they're absolutely so invested and will give me whatever I want? Or do I stay at Ole Miss where I'm the king of the world? Maybe I don't get as much talent or have as much resources, but I can get them there. I don't know, man. LSU might cost them, might cost themselves the guy that they ultimately want because of Jeff Landry getting involved.
And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, time for me to tell Rob what's X, and he will tell everyone why. The first thing that's Xing is 6'7".
No one knows why.
What's it? Well, it's dictionary.com's word of the year. 6'7".
It's not a word.
Okay, it's two numbers, but I guess if you spell them out, if it's hyphenated, is it one word or is it two words?
It's two words.
But if there's a hyphen in it, it makes it one word, right?
But there's not.
I don't know.
I'm
in a dictionary.
You,
did you look it up? Okay.
There's not. So here's where I'm at. I got to tell you, we said earlier in the show, like, we keep having these spots where you bump up against accepting that you're old versus realizing that you're old. I'll tell you where I'm at with one of them. When I was a Ute and words like bootylicious got picked up by the dictionary, which is a real thing that happened. Mm-hmm. As a Ute, I was like, yeah, suck on it, old guys. Yeah, take that. Bootylicious is now a real word. And now, because I know I'm an old, I'm like, what is the definition in dictionary.com of 6'7"? It's literally going to say, nobody bleeping knows. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, I didn't look it up.
I think I've hit old because I am mad about, I didn't even know that was a thing until literally right now when you just told me. And I am PO'd about it.
Yeah, that's why it's actually.
I just went from 0 to 90 on the ticked off a meter.
Okay, there's a motion that goes with it. What is it again? All right, the next thing is X and is Sydney Sweeney.
Yep, I almost said it out loud. I whispered it under my breath because I knew where you were going. And first off, I want to say I'm very proud of you for going there. Like that took a pair, and I'm proud of you for doing that one. Again. Oh, no, actually, I think I do know this because I don't know if it's new, just dropped, whatever, but I saw a trailer last night for apparently it's a boxing movie called Christine that she is the star in.
Yeah, I don't think that's out yet. That's not why she's Xing.
Okay, because I saw the trailer for it last night.
There was a benefit. I think it's Power to Women or something like that with a bunch of, like, Jamie Lee Curtis was there.
By the way.
And some
good for her.
Sydney Sweeney wore something that is you should check it out. It's safe for work. It is. Absolutely. I mean, be a little bit careful.
Yeah, again, I said earlier in the show or earlier in the week that there was going to be this reality where butt breathing was going to be a Google search for me.
We never got to that. Yeah.
No.
Did you ever look that up? It's a legitimate thing.
I said that there was going to be a world that I lived in where at some point someone was going to look at my Google history and they were going to see that I went and I looked up butt breathing, and I was totally fine with that. Let me tell you the world I'm not going to live in. I'm not going to live in the world where I go home, leave my laptop on the table. The wife goes, "Can I use your laptop?" I say, yes. She goes to Google something and she sees that the last thing that I Googled was Sydney Sweeney.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, she wore a nice dress.
And I'm going to guess it was see-through.
Yeah, and she didn't wear a bra. So,
okay.
And
I mean, can we be honest? Like, that's so not shocking anymore.
Anyway, people were doing interviews with her and
staring at the ceiling lights.
Here's the thing. She doesn't stand still when she talks. That's all I'm saying. So anyway,
been doing that
probably should not have made that noise. All right.
Are you enjoying this event this evening? It's lovely up in the sky that I'm looking
Exactly.
at.
It would be very difficult. All right. The next thing is Xing is Brian Hartline.
Brian Hartline is Xing because the rumor going around that something's going down. The rumor going around right now, I don't know that this is why, but what I heard last night was Brian Hartline is kind of emerging as the Penn State frontrunner for that next head coaching job. I think Matt Rule may have cost himself the job by getting hammered by Minnesota. I don't think Manny did. Now, Manny Diaz may take that from him if Duke goes on a little heater. If Duke ends up as a 9-3 football team, if they end up 9-3 and in a prestigious bowl, maybe Manny Diaz gets into that conversation. But I called this shot when James Franklin got fired. The very first name I said when we came back on that Monday was, Lonzo, I think you're going to lose your offensive coordinator because I think Brian Hartline is the guy they want. Why wouldn't they? He just offensively coordinated a national championship team last year. He is currently offensive coordinating a national championship probably team this year, or at least the number one contender for it. And on top of all that, of all the names that have been listed, including Matt Rule, who's the most blue-collar Penn State guy, the most fits the culture guy? Brian Hartline.
And finally, the last thing.
I wonder if he has nipple rings.
With limited time. I don't know. It's a common theme for X for some reason. Trey Savage.
Trey Savage is Xing because Trey is Savage. Last night, my dude goes 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run allowed. It was a Kike Hernandez big dong. K'd 12 for the Toronto Blue Jays last night. K'd 12 in 7 innings. Absolutely set him up, knock him down for Trey Savage, homie. He gets Toronto the win. The Blue Jays now up in the World Series 3-2. They are headed back to Toronto for the final 2 games, 6 and 7 on Friday and Saturday night. The Jays need to win 1 of 2. The Dodgers must win both in order to repeat as World Series champs. We'll break down game 6 and 7 tomorrow on the show. We'll make our predictions for the entire football weekend tomorrow during the show. We will set you up for everything else you need to know during the show. And we'll send you off into a beautiful weekend after we finish off the Friday edition of the Rob Brown Show. He is Lonzo. I am Rob Brown. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, it's your own fault. Don't drink or drive. I'll punch you in the face. And I'll see you back here tomorrow on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Later.
I mean, that's just some Bush League stuff.
All right, we said Sydney Sweeney enough that I thought it would have just showed up on yours. It showed up on mine after we said it enough.
I'm not going to lie. I just went ahead and searched it on Twitter. And, yep.
That'll get you trending, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we say that as if Sydney Sweeney hasn't just been topless in like 10 movies.
She probably is the most trending topic
without a doubt
of all time on
Without
this
a doubt.
program. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
She actually is. She's trending. It's not like
I have no doubt. Oh, man. All right, dudes and dudettes, that's it for us. I got a jet. We got stuff to do.
Visit CordellCordell.com to schedule your consultation. If you or anyone you care about is facing divorce, contact Cordell and Cordell today. With over 100,000 clients served, we understand the challenges you're facing on a personal level. Call Cordell and Cordell today at 1-855-GET-LEGAL. That's 1-855-GET-LEGAL. 55 Beatty Greenville.
Sometimes real life can get in the way of doing things that you want to do, like getting rid of that chronic joint pain. Hey, it's Rob Brown, and that is why I am here to tell
Austin, see you, buddy. Thank you guys for coming here. James, Joey B, Kane, y'all are the best. See you